Yep, do it. I'm doing one too. All right. I was about to ask you this question before I hit record.
Okay.
What are we calling the podcast?
Live from the Bear Factory.
All right, good. That's what I thought.
Yeah. That's
Um,
fine.
Welcome to episode 1 of Live from the Bear Factory. Cheers.
I feel like I forgot I was wearing the sweater. We need like Christmas sweaters.
Oh, yeah. And I need to hide. We can see the video. It's creeping me out.
We can do the SNL skit where they're like, good times.
Yeah, indeed. Good times.
So this is our recording studio, mostly.
Yeah, that we also call the Bear Factory. And I guess I should explain what the Bear Factory means.
Yes.
So my musical project, Grand Commander, Ketner has a musical project called Ketner, and also Stevie James Trio.
Yeah, I have a blues band.
Yeah. So the song isn't released yet, but Bear Factory, it was a stream of consciousness song that I wrote. I just sat down and started writing. The song is about 12, 13 minutes long, and I didn't sit down with the intention of writing anything specific. I just started writing, and it turned into this kind of like deep dive into creativity. And, you know, it's like how when you're a kid, everything is fun and you just play. And like when I used to play music when I was a kid, it's like I just played. It was just fun.
Right.
You get older and then you have all these different things that happen. You know, this shit where you got to make money and think about a job and worry about trying to be famous or paying bills with gigs, and it's just like you lose sight of it. So I had all sorts of shit happen, and so Bear Factory kind of ended up coming out and just being, you know, my expression and just tunneling into that idea and exploring it. It was also cool because I sat down. A guy was coming over to record actually, to do some auto-tuning and Melodyne, but I had a limit. I was like, this guy's going to be here in like whatever, 30 minutes, an hour.
Guy who tunes pianos?
Yeah.
Okay. Piano tuner. Yeah.
David Featherstone. And if you ever need your pianos tuned, he's fucking awesome. Badass composer as well. So yeah, I was like, I got to make a demo real quick. So with this mic and a click and a guitar, I just read through what I wrote one time and I composed it on the spot, and pretty much all the chord changes and everything I played instantly became the Bear Factory. And then I just made the song, you know, over the next couple weeks. But yeah, so it's just a deep dive into creativity and kind of going back into your past and reconnecting with that kind of stuff you felt as a child that wasn't really hindered by society or people or expectations or anything. And so that's why we named Bear Factory Studios after the Bear Factory, and that's why we're naming the podcast.
Well, yeah, it's because we had a debate for like 3 days. We wrote down like 7,000 names. And I like the idea of calling this place the Bear Factory because I thought that like in a studio, like our studio is pretty utilitarian. Like we don't have like beautiful portraits and cool paintings and shit. It's like mostly acoustic panels and gear. And it feels like you should come here and like not worry about that. It's like a place to do work and create art. And the art comes from inside you. And so it's like we're trying to pull like the hidden animal or ferocious nature of an individual out of them in this place. And it's like, you know, everybody has different working styles, but the working style that we've kind of adapted here is like it's very serious. Like I don't particularly like when people go to the studio and are spending money and getting like fucked up and
oh man, when people show up to record with beer, I'm like that.
Yeah, I mean, some people can handle it, but it's like I've been on several sessions. I know you have too, where like it just devolves into chaos and like non-productivity, and people are basically just paying, you know, really high fees to party in, you know, space with nice gear that's not getting used.
I've also been to gigs where bands are great for their first set and they're okay in their second set and they're fucking terrible in their last set.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of musicians just don't understand how shitty they sound when they drink.
Especially singers, because it's like your voice is so intimately tied to like how drunk you are. And it's like, I know singers will be like on it, and I'm like, damn, they're really great. And I might even go get somebody, be like, come in and listen to the singer, like the next set. And in between the sets, they've taken like 3 shots, and they're like holding a drink, and like they start singing, it's just bullshit, and someone's like, they suck, like your ears are bad, and I'm like, no, they're just wasted, like give them another shot. And it's like, I think a lot of musicians don't realize how many opportunities they lose by like just using, the performance or the time in the studio to just be like, just to abuse a substance that you can abuse on your own time, So I feel like the Bear Factory, to me, is kind of like sacred, It's like, it's stupid, but it's like, I like to come in here and it's like, okay, I'm going to go do work, like, but like not like work like, oh, a job I hate. Like I'm going to go do like meaningful, productive things with my time.
So I agree. Why are we doing the podcast?
To get famous and make a lot of money.
Yeah, it's definitely based on greed, mostly money.
We want supermodels to throw themselves at us. Instagram supermodels.
It's always the goal. So we're a studio, but we're also independent musicians. We record people. We mess with acoustics. We have a bunch of different areas that we kind of dip our toes into.
Right.
And, it's like, this is a small room. And it's like, question, how do you make a small room sound good for recording and for mixing? Like it's hard. So what happens is we'll end up trying something. So first, and this ties into what the podcast is about. So first, there's actually a little piece, you can't see it on the camera, but there's a little piece of foam from my first attempts at soundproofing, and you quickly realize it does fucking nothing.
Right.
So if you can see, you can probably see all the panels around. These are all...
You see these at least.
Yeah, mostly panels that we built. I think some of the panels in here I bought, but the point is to get from where we were with the foam to like the panels that work really well. It was like a giant journey in research, and all this kind of shit. We will just sit around and just riff and talk and try to figure stuff out like for hours. And we'll have these conversations where if we just kind of play with these ideas about acoustics, it could be about mixing. I mean, it could be about life in general, whatever. We've just found that if we sit and talk for a while, suddenly we kind of get to the core of like, this is what we need to do next.
Right.
Or that's like in life or mixing or whatever.
Or with like social media promotion, for example, something you've gotten into a lot recently. It's like all of that came out of like conversations. Like we read a couple books on the music business, and then like out of that, it was like, okay, well, what's the next step? And it's like just from talking to each other, he stumbled onto this thing called indiepreneur, and it's like indiepreneurs obviously have been like the method you've been putting into place for Grand Commander. But there was also like, I think the Bobby Ozinski, like his book, Music 4.1, and a social media promotion for musicians. It's like it created like a mental framework to operate inside of. And it's like, but all of that came out of like us having discussions like, okay, well, like take like the Billie Eilish thing. And it's like, here's, two kids recording in their bedroom and they're having like all this success. It's like, so obviously there's a way around historically traditional avenues of self-promotion. And it's like, so it's like stuff like that. Like, how can we as an individual maximize our potential in whatever we're doing, whether it's music or promotion or both, or trying to make a room sound good, Yeah,
so we would spend like tons of time talking about like how to promote and meet people and do stuff we want to do. And it's like we would literally spend sometimes like a lot of time talking about the videos we want to make, which turns into like talking about social media strategy and shit we want to do. And we've had several conversations where we're like, I wish we had recorded that conversation because like the path we went down to figure stuff out, one, it could resonate with other people who could get ideas. And two, if there were more people involved with our conversation, we could get ideas from them as well.
Right. Yeah. And it's also another thing. I had an idea, like I'm really interested in like American music and American music history, especially as it relates to like blues and jazz. And in Dallas, he and I, between us, we know like all the best, jazz cats in the city. And it's like, I like taking lessons with people, like even like people who play piano or bass or saxophone. I'm a guitar player. And it's like, what's a way I could get free lessons from these dudes? And I was like, we should do like a podcast where we have them come in and like play with me, then basically like deep dive into like, the music stuff. and they're basically teaching me for free, and then we can talk about whatever afterwards, is, you know, and maybe I'll like make them lunch. And so, you know, the idea of this podcast is it's like an open forum for creatives and people that we know. And so, you know, we want to have guests on. And
Yeah, so we want to have music guests. We want to shine a light on all of our musician friends and people we don't know yet in DFW. And I guess, yeah, so it's like things that we're obviously into that we're going to talk about: guitar, bass, being independent musicians, recording, mixing, production, acoustics,
right.
social media marketing. And then what did you just say? Oh, yeah, bringing people on and like actually playing music and jamming with people.
And also like life philosophy.
Yeah. And then just like wherever. Oh, and we're both currently right now obsessed with diet and nutrition.
Yeah, particularly Dr. Terry Walls, the Walls Protocol.
Yeah, we're both on it. Yeah, because, you know, for a while, like we tried to start a podcast or we talked about it. And it was always one of those things where it's like there's this, it's kind of the same thing when you start a band. People are like, what's your sound? What's your niche? What's your genre? You know, like you got to find your fucking whatever, your box and stay inside of it.
Right.
So for a while I was like, well, are we going to do audio production, or you're just like, what do we do? And then I finally realized like what we go through in our lives, this journey that involves music and everything surrounding it, you know, including what we eat, how we feel, gigs, songs we record, songs we like, anything. It's like, this is our story.
Right.
And we're just going to make a podcast out of it and see what happens and try to share with other people.
And also try to make a lot of money.
Definitely money.
I'm just kidding. We're both really poor.
I mean, I would love to make money from it, but it's like, I don't know, there's a sense of community. Like, I notice people on Instagram, a lot of people that post stories on a daily basis, I watch it.
Right, even if it's completely pointless.
Yeah, but there's some that aren't pointless. You know, there's some people that do like, this is what I'm eating.
Right.
And I kind of skip those. But there's people that post funny memes, and I find my sources for memes. There's other people that post stuff that I find really thought-provoking and enjoyable.
Right.
And eventually you just go through, you know, you have your whatever, certain amount of friends, and you just start finding the content that you dig on a daily basis.
I had to stop doing that, though, because it's like, I always got really disappointed. There'd be like a girl, and she'd be like, y'all, so today, and then it's like the next part of the story, I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. She's like, okay, you guys have to see this. And she's like, gets out of her bed, and she's like walking, and you see her feet, and you're like, oh, this is going to be badass. And she goes in her closet, and it's like a hairbrush, and you're like, what? She's like, I found my hairbrush, y'all. And you're like,
I haven't seen any of those.
oh, I've seen, but we have different feeds.
Yeah.
But so my whole point is, I always feel like it's going to be like, wow, she's going to like tell me the meaning of life. And it's like, this is really important. That's why she took the time to like film herself doing this. And it's like, she just found like a lost item.
Right.
So I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, like, when I first started advertising, I Hope You Die in a Fire, the Facebook algorithm showed it to a lot of 13 to 17-year-olds. So I ended up getting a lot of followers that were 13 to 17, and like,
You and Drake.
yeah,
Just kidding.
some I followed, you know? So it's really interesting to just see the difference in like words people use, music people like across different ages. And Instagram's really cool for that. So
Yeah.
I don't know, there's a lot I like, a lot I don't like. I think at the end of the day, if people piss you off, you just have to not follow them and try to fill up your feed with shit you like.
Yeah, exactly. I like all the young musicians I see on Instagram.
Yeah, like, oh man, people posting music, people posting reviews of music they like, movies, comics, art, all that kind of stuff. I love social media for all that.
Yeah.
People talking shit, I don't like. People posting videos of embarrassing things that other people have done, I don't like. I don't know. It's about it.
Let me ask you about so right now, Sam's band Grand Commander. You are at how many streams right now on Spotify?
I'll tell you exactly. As of
So he has his first, not his first, but one of his first releases was a song called "I Hope You Die in a Fire," which when he showed me all of his songs from his soon to be released record.
712,428.
712,000. And so just for some reference, for local artists in Dallas, like even some of the bigger names, if I go through their Spotify's, they're averaging usually less than 5,000 streams, and these are usually for songs that they've, spent money promoting or whatever, and have been out for, sometimes 4 or 5 years. And it's and they're getting, he's getting nearly as many streams in a day as some of these people have gotten in 4 or 5 years of promoting a song. So how does that happen?
Yeah. I guess it's been averaging 2,000 to 3,000 plays a day for probably almost a year. I mean, it makes sense, right? 365 times 2.
Right.
700 something thousand. What is that? 730,000? Yeah.
Right.
It adds up. Maybe that's 2,000. Okay.
So 2,000 streams a day, roughly what the average Dallas artist does in like several years.
I mean, I don't know what they do.
I look a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So when I first released I Hope You Die in a Fire, I didn't have a video, and this happens all the time, is that I'll have a song ready, I get it back from mastering, and I keep thinking like, oh man, you should do a video would be really cool. Let me check that the video is recording, because I just don't want to finish. Yeah.
Is it? I didn't see.
Yeah, because if this thing is square, it means it's recording.
Oh, we just look like statues.
I know.
We should move around more.
Okay, so I put it out, and I was like, well, I can't just say, hey, my song is out. So in a last-minute effort, I put up this image. And I don't know if you remember. It was just an image. It had some words. And it was It was a really stupid post. And it was just kind of talking about, like, it was something with relationships, or I don't know. And I felt so bad, because I'm sure everybody's had the experience. You put something you work on a song for fucking ever, and then you put it out, and it's like, you get like 8 likes.
Right.
And then you share it on your personal page, and like your mom and your close friends share it and like it. And maybe you'll get some shares, maybe you won't.
Right.
And then it's like, damn, like, what do I do now? So then a lot of people go and they make a video.
You shit post the current music industry, and you shit post Spotify.
Oh yeah.
And then you shit post.
Oh, especially the algorithm is so bad.
Yeah, you shit post Facebook, and then you never shit post yourself though.
Well, so here's the thing. And then it's like, okay, I got to make a video. And I had this crazy video idea that I was going to make that was probably going to cost like $3,000 or $4,000. And do you remember me telling you about that?
Yeah. And just so you guys know some background, previously, a year before, he had another release called Bad Rabbit, and he taught himself how to do stop motion animation from watching tutorials online. He went to a storage space, built a stop motion studio, and animated the entire thing himself by hand. That's a lot of work for something that hasn't done as well as this very simple idea.
And when that came out, it got like tons of shares, tons of comments, and I was like, hell yeah, this is awesome. And what I did on Bad Rabbit before I knew anything about promotion is I did what I think a lot of musicians do, is you go to your page's manager and you click like boost post, and you just spend like, I think I spent $150. I think I ended up getting like 11,000 plays. And at the time I thought that was awesome. I didn't sell any merch, however. And in my headline, of course, I put in everything. You can get this on Spotify. Here's a link to iTunes. Here's a link to this.
Right. It's
yeah.
Like 20 links.
Here's a link to where you can buy my t-shirt, because I had a t-shirt made of Bad Rabbit, and I was like, all right, time for all the money to start rolling in. And of course, actually one guy bought a t-shirt, so I can't say I didn't sell any. And I got a bunch of shares, and then I even got a write-up in the Dallas Observer, and that got lots of shares, but it still wasn't it wasn't really leading to more people knowing about the music, except for like the small splash that the organic reach initially made. So fast forward to I Hope You Die in a Fire. I had a video idea that was just crazy, and I was all gung-ho, and the people I was trying to work with, it just didn't work out. I'm still friends with everybody. It was just one of those things where, like, the feeling, the resonance of this project that I was excited about, like, it didn't feel...
fuck all those people. I'm just kidding. I don't know what he's talking about.
It didn't feel reciprocated, so I was like, let's cancel this. And then I'm sitting, I'm like, man, what can I do like where I am now? So the first thing I did is I kind of just wanted a video with text. So the first thing I made was kind of like a prototype of the video, and it's on Instagram, and I shared it, and I kind of just had some blocks of text. I don't know. Did you ever see this one?
Is it the very first one?
It's
not the one that's up right now.
Yeah, it's the very first one. And I posted it, and it was weird. I felt kind of nervous about it because, you know, the title, I Hope You Die in a Fire, obviously it's comical and there's humor in it, but the subject matter behind the title, it's very real and personal. And I started talking about that in the video, the first one with text. I think I had like, I don't know, 5 or 6 just screens of text. And I posted it. And one girl, a friend of mine in Austin, she was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I'm going through. Like, how'd you know? And I was like, it was kind of a light bulb moment. And I was like, she wouldn't have known about the song at all. And even had she heard it, she may not have known, you know, what I was trying to say. But because I put this text in the video, she connected to what the song was about and everything changed.
So it's like, what I'm abstracting from that is when you try to sell people shit, especially try to sell your friends and family, it's like maybe a few people will show interest just out of like kindness, or maybe they genuinely like it. But when you actually just share your life, when you were sharing like how you actually felt, somebody instantly connected on it on a much deeper level than like, oh, here's my friend, I guess I'll buy his shirt.
Yeah. And she didn't buy a shirt, but she did make me think, okay, like I'm going in the right direction. She inspired me to keep working. So the next idea, I was like, well, if these blocks of text on a page are good, then I need to have more text and
what did it say?
More blocks.
What did it say? Do you remember? Like,
I mean,
roughly.
Let me just look it up.
I keep coughing a lot because I'm drinking this coffee.
How uncool is it for me to be on my phone during our first podcast?
It's cool.
Yeah.
We need the ability to pull stuff up. We need like we could put a big screen back here, and it could just run pornography.
No.
And we could run different kinds of pornography. Keep the same podcast, but different porn we could insert.
With all different cultures and...
Yeah, and then people could just, in an algorithm, we could match that to their chosen porn. And through this process, we would find fans of our podcast.
So I said, I used to feel guilty. Oh, shit. Damn it. How do I restart it? I used to feel guilty when I saw the darker side of myself. Oh, and the song was playing. Always a shock when that person is revealed. Where's the... 1 minute, I'm perfectly calm. Next minute, lost in my head, screaming at a memory. I wrote a song about it. Link in bio. ...
So it's like if you saw this in your feed.
Where the F else would it be? Smiley face. Then I Hope You Die in a Fire cover artwork.
So it's like if you saw this in your feed, what's cool about it, you know, one of my favorite viral campaigns, it was like probably one of the first viral campaigns, and some people might remember it, was the campaign for the movie Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Did you ever see those?
No.
So all over downtown Dallas, like especially when you're coming up 67 to 35 or I-45 to 75, because I went to school in Lancaster, so I'd go back and forth. There were these billboards, and they'd be like, it said like, and it was just like a text and like handwritten thing, and it says like, I am so done with you, Sarah Marshall.
Oh.
And then like you'd go like another 10 miles down, and the next billboard would be like, you cheated on me, and I have the emails. And then it's like, I was like, what the fuck is this? And like you get further down, and it's like, I have the pictures, I'm sending them to your job. Like, it's like, and it was like, did somebody with a lot of money get cheated on?
Right.
And like buy billboards to like, you know, shame this person. And so the point of that whole thing was, then it's like, finally the last billboard, like in like a series of 10 billboards said like, forgettingsarahmarshall.com.
Right.
And I was like, what the
like,
fuck is this? So I go home and look it up, and I'm like, oh, it's a movie.
Yeah.
Like, but it kind of, my point is, that gave me the same kind of feeling. It was like, what's this interesting thing? Somebody like having like a breakdown? Is this like preview to a movie? Is this
Right.
like, you know, and it's like, oh, it's a song.
Okay, so like my headline or whatever comment write-up part, I said a breakup song, perhaps. More like how strange it is to realize you're insane song, wondering if you're the only one viewed through the lens of a harsh experience that left a lasting impact. And the comment that convinced me to keep going was, someone said, Jesus fuck, Sam. This has been my life for the last 4 months. Malice, rage, agony, heartbreak, rising darkness. Thank you for posting this.
Wow.
And what's curious is the other comment that was ha 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 ha, which is like half the people get that I'm like trying to say something. Other people see the humor in the fact that the song is called "I Hope You Die in a Fire," and that's pretty much been steady. So the first idea for the video after that was I wanted to have like chunks of text, like tons and tons of text, and go like deep into the heart of, you know, holding on to this stuff from your past. And then I wanted to accelerate to where it would be like, boom, tons of text. And somebody's like, oh my God, like, you know, the only way I could possibly read all this is to slow it down. I'm like, this would be great, because then people would put the video, go like one frame at a time and see what it says. And I started doing it. And as I was watching it, I was like, this sucks. This is like, this is like totally wrong. I don't want to, I'm going to alienate almost everybody.
Right.
If it's on Instagram, you can't even like pause and go back and forth. It just doesn't make sense. So then I was like, what if I could do the least amount of text possible? And then I remembered I used to work in this place called the Learning Center at UNT, and I was a math tutor, and they had a speed reading course, and it was really cool because you would sit down on a computer and there were all these different exercises like to expand your peripheral vision so you could see whatever. And I tried to find that program later on in life, and I couldn't, but I found a different speed reading program. And there's a bunch of them now. And what they do is they center the word, and they make the middle letter a different color. And that allows your eye to stay centered, and then it just plays one word at a time. And once you get used to it, you can read a lot faster.
I didn't know this.
Oh, yeah. You can read a lot faster than normal.
So I was like, where the hell did he get this idea? Like, does he do like weird drugs?
Yeah. So, and I was totally sober when I did this whole thing and when I wrote it. So I found an app on, I guess it was the Microsoft store, you know, just on Windows, like a speed reading app. And I just kind of wrote a thing. It's one of those, once again, kind of stream of consciousness things. And once I kind of connected to the feeling that I liked getting across from the first video, it started being like, okay, like what am I really trying to say? Because first the song is about just my experience. And then once I got into the video, I was like, well, I want to kind of convey like a lifeline type of feeling to where like I'm not in the hole that I was in, and it was hard to see it when I was in it, but I'm out of it now. So it's like and that's kind of what the whole Grand Commander album is about, is how to crawl out of a hole, essentially.
Right. And so it plays kind of like in rhythm with like the cadence of the tune.
Well, so that was something I discovered. So I'm watching it, and there's this weird cognitive kind of dissonance with watching the words and then listening to the song, and it doesn't line up. And then I was like, oh, well, there's different speeds you can set in the program, you know, because you can set it to whatever, since as you become a better, faster reader, you change the speed and speed it up. So I took the tempo of the song and figured out whatever I had to put in with, I don't know how many per second or whatever, to make the song line up. And it actually was never perfect. So I had to go into Premiere and go like frame by frame. But yeah, so I eventually realized that if I make the tempo of the words change with the same tempo of the song, then it just has this kind of cool hypnotizing effect.
Right.
And then the next thing is that the words are different from what I'm saying in the song, except when it gets to the chorus, I hope you die in a fire, suddenly they're the same.
Right.
So it's like the thing I was just exploring was, it's like a dynamic between dissonance between what you're reading and what you're hearing, making way into the chorus where all of a sudden everything's combined.
So it's like two roads converging.
Right.
Right.
But the whole time it's in rhythm. So it was and it's like a deep dive you do when you sit down and you start doing something, and it's like I didn't know I was going to do any of this. It all just
So that's
kind of happened.
Last time I looked, like 865,000 streams.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
views.
it's up there. That's on Facebook. It's
So
really
it's close
high.
to 1 million. So
Yeah.
you've got between your Facebook video and your Spotify, you're at over 1 million.
Oh yeah,
content
yeah,
interactions between individuals, and this is from one song,
right.
self-recorded, self-released.
Yeah, all
And it's
done
like-
in this room
So that's
on this mic.
Yeah, so that's kind of the idea to me, right, of the whole thing. It's like, look, how can a individual who wants to do music or do art or whatever find a way? Because that means, it's not a million unique individuals. Some people watched it more than once. Some people just left their screen open or
Yeah.
whatever. But it's like, at least 100,000 people have seen your content.
Right.
And it's like there's a lot of people that I know in this city who have spent. They didn't put in the time value. I guess there's like a trade-off. It's like you can either like pay the time to learn how to do it yourself, or you can pay somebody else to do it. But then you're just assuming they actually know what they're doing. You're just taking their word for it. And then a lot of people I know in the city have talked to promoters who want like a minimum of $1,200 a month to like be their publicist and their promoter. There's booking agents, and it's like betwixt all of this, I know people that have spent like $10,000 in a year. And they're still at under 5,000 total content streams across all mediums.
Right.
And this is in 1 year. You've crossed the 1 million threshold. You're about to cross the 2 million threshold probably by the spring.
I mean, if you combine, I guess I really don't count views on Facebook and Instagram because, I mean, if people see like 3 seconds, I think, of your video on Facebook, it counts as a view. So I'm like,
true, but I mean, you have people that are paying somebody $1,200 a month,
right?
Whose total content view on Facebook is less than 5,000.
Yeah,
you know
true.
What I mean? It's like,
I mean, I would definitely rather have 800 something thousand than 3,
right?
For sure. Okay, so at this point, I had the video, and this was November. The song came out in November. I can't remember exactly when I made the video. But I do know that on Black Friday of 2018, it's crazy to think that I've been promoting the song over a year now, but it's paying for itself, and we'll get to that in a second. Indiepreneur, which is what is it? How do you describe it? A full stack creative resource for DIY musicians who want to.
It's an online college course.
I mean, it's
media
not,
promotion,
yeah,
but it's not
like
it's
real
not
college.
It's not a real. You don't get college credit, but to me, it's the equivalent of like paying like University of Phoenix, and they send you lectures with course data and text and worksheets, and then there's an online classroom, which is just a forum, and you can ask people questions.
And they also interact. They'll do it's great. And they had a Black Friday deal for the first month for $1. And the video, they were actually, in 2018, their video recording technique was not sophisticated. It was a low quality camera, and it was this guy, Circa, Kyle Lemaire, who was in front of this whiteboard. And I remember watching it because if you do any amount of promotion, you just start getting in your feed just all this shit. And sometimes you'll go and like, okay, I'll click on it, and you'll get just the most, like, give me your email and I'll send you a PDF of everything you need to do to succeed in the music industry, right? And you get it, and it's like, plan your releases,
right?
Like it's like just this stupid shit.
Talk to people,
yeah, network, yeah. I mean, everybody's. So I thought I was watching Kyle, and he's on a chalkboard, and I'm like, I wonder what that chalkboard says. And at this point, I've never really come across a course that did anything. And I'm like, fuck it, it's $1. Who cares? It probably sucks. It's probably gonna be a waste of my time, but it's $1, and that's absolutely worth me checking out for a month.
Right.
So I get on, and it is the complete opposite. It's the best thing I've ever found. And at this point, I did not know the Facebook Business Manager existed.
Yeah, right.
I did not know what it was. I was those same, in the same group of people being like, oh, the algorithm sucks, and you got to spend money, and you just throw it down the toilet. And most of the musicians I talk to at this point are still like, the algorithm is terrible.
Right. I'm not paying you $5, Facebook, for help.
Yeah.
Fuck you. It's my $5.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give this promoter $1,200 because they know what they're doing.
So what I learned is that the Facebook marketing brain you access through business.facebook.com. Everybody has access to it for free. And if you want to promote ads, it costs money. But there's this giant resource that had been available to me the entire time that I did not know about.
Right.
So I got into it, and Indiepreneur has a method. They call it the Fan Finder method. And I followed it as closely as I could. I had a couple cover videos of me playing Zelda songs on that guitar, where I would play like the melody on my Nintendo controller and then the bass line with my left hand and just whatever. I think I did Song of Storms.
Gerudo Valley?
Yeah, and that one too.
Gerudo Valley.
And those are the first ones I promoted, and it was just crazy because all of a sudden, those are easy to promote, right? Because I can make audiences. So you make inside Business Manager, you can make audiences of specific places in the world, and Indiepreneur tells you which countries, and then specific age ranges and interests. And you can kind of do that in the Pages Manager, but you can get very granular.
The way I thought about it when you first showed me was like, we've all known that like Google and Facebook and everybody's tracking us, and they're selling that data to credit card companies and the government. And it's like, I thought, like, man, that's so fucked up. Like, how come they get to do that? Then when you're on Business Manager, you realize, oh, they made it available to everybody.
Right, like we can do
all
that
that
too.
data that they're selling and giving away, it's available to the entire public as long as you have a Facebook account.
Yeah, exactly. So after the Zelda video, the first one I put out, I started getting, this is after years and years of, you put out a video, and I think the most amount of views I ever had on a video, I think I got like 11,000 on Bad Bad Rabbit, but before that it was like maybe 1,500 when I had this like MIDI bass thing that I was working on. And suddenly I have 80,000 views on a video, but it's like tons of shares, tons of comments of people asking, like saying it's cool, a little bit of hate, not too much hate, and then people are liking my page.
Yeah, so this is like the quality of the interaction. It wasn't just
Yeah.
somebody saw it in their feed and it was like, bleh.
No, all
These
of a
are
sudden,
like people who are like,
there are people I
interested.
still talk to on Instagram and Facebook that I become friends with that live in New Zealand, Europe, different parts of the world. They're actually, I would call them my friends that I met just from promoting the Zelda videos. So after I did that, Indiepreneur recommends doing a fan finder where pretty much you do like a cool live performance of your song. And I was like, well, I don't have a live performance, but I have this video, and fuck it, I'm going to use their advertising methods with my video that I think let's see what kind of response I get. So I made the audiences the way they tell you, and they have a whole method. And I don't want to give away, I don't want our podcast to be like, here's Indiepreneur's method, listen to us instead of them.
yeah,
Like,
I think they're cool because what's funny is in some of his modules, he's like, and so when you're setting this up for your friends,
Right.
like he even says it, like, I know you're going to use this for other people.
yeah,
He's like, so when you set it up for your friends, you might want to have them do it like this.
right. Well, I'll say this. No matter how much I say, the amount that you would learn by just like purchasing the fan finder or a monthly subscription would far outweigh anything we tell you, plus the benefits of being able to actually interact with them.
Right.
That being said, I follow the fan finder method, and I started to get comments. Like one of the very first comments I put up was a guy thanking me, saying, hey, like, thanks for doing this for other people or whatever. I can't remember what he said, but I was like, okay, this is cool. So I let it run. And I think at that time I had like, the reason I was most interested in promoting the video was one specific reason, is that at that time I had The Witching Hour was out, Bad Bad Rabbit, Pilot Light. I don't know if Pilot Light was out yet. I think Pilot Light was out, and then I Hope You Die in a Fire. So I think I had 4 songs, and I had a couple. Did I have any B-sides at that point? I don't know. So when I Hope You Die in a Fire came out, ending credits. So I think I had 5 songs under my artist name in Spotify. And the part that I hated was they all said less than 1,000. And
Right.
it just drove me crazy. I would go and check, and I'd have like 14 monthly listeners. And then I wake up in the morning and I check my Spotify for Artists, the app that you get that shows you how you're doing. It would be like 5 streams. And then sometimes I'd hit like 24 monthly listeners. I'm like, yeah, like people are listening. Like, I don't know who. And then you can go and see the cities and
was
countries. And it's like Dallas, Fort Worth, Denton. I'm like, it's obviously just my friends, my family.
Right.
So once the video came out, it was cool because I didn't put the name of the song on the Instagram video. Oh, because Facebook Business Manager controls Facebook and Instagram. So people didn't know what the name of the song was, and because the song was an ad, it was not published on my Instagram page. So people would see the ad, they'd go to my page, and a lot of people would follow me, but they wouldn't actually be able to find the video that they saw in the ad. So as a result, a lot of those people start going to my YouTube, and they put comment like, hey, I came here from Instagram, whatever. They'll subscribe on YouTube, leave a comment, and then a lot of people would just go and find the song on Spotify or Apple Music or SoundCloud. All my numbers just from this ad across the board have been going up. I think it has like 30,000 plays on YouTube and maybe 30,000 streams on SoundCloud. I don't have a lot of followers on SoundCloud, but I'm nearing 1,000 followers on YouTube. I think I'm like 850 on YouTube. And still, the only thing I've ever really promoted is this song, which at this point I'm like, I got to start doing a different song, which I'm thinking about. But still, the reason I haven't stopped is what I'm still getting to. So then the numbers started getting up to like 100 listeners a month, because every day it's like a moving window. So the amount of people that have listened in the past 30 days, it's not like that number stays the same. And then in March it updates. It's like every day it just shows you how many people have listened basically in the past 30 days. And, it jumped up to like 100, 150 listeners. And I start, instead of, 5, 10 streams a day, it starts getting into something 50, 60 streams a day. I'm like, this is cool. This is obviously the ads are working. People are going and listening to it. And I read that the listener to stream ratio is really important in terms of getting on an algorithmic playlist, because I listen to Discover Weekly. I love Spotify.
Does this have to do with how the payment on Spotify is a range? It's like 0.0064 and then or to 0.0024.
No, it's not. That's something different.
Okay.
What it has to do with is to make this algorithmic playlist. Yes, that's different. So if somebody pays for Spotify and listens to your music, you're going to get more money than someone who has a free account.
Ah, I see.
And then different countries have different rates. But this is different. So everyone has a Discover Weekly, which is, an algorithmic playlist. So Spotify analyzes your listening habits, and every week on Monday, you get a fresh playlist of a bunch of songs that the Spotify machine learning brain thinks you'll like based on what you've heard, which is why if you share a single Spotify account with a friend or something, then you're just going to have all these crazy recommendations, because you and your friend are going to be listening to different styles, unless you and your friend have identical listening habits.
Right.
So
this makes sense.
Right. And then there's also editorial playlists on Spotify, which are actually curated by real people.
So, but just let me grab piece of information. So you're saying, because you were using this targeted methodology through social media to direct people to Spotify, there were people that were more like the songs anyways, like the things that they would have their kind of behavior was similar to you.
Well, one of my audiences was people with relationship status. It's complicated.
Oh,
so immediately, you're grabbing people. And then I got into lookalike audiences and all this really cool stuff that you can do in the Facebook Business Manager that I've learned most of my musician friends don't even know about.
So you're like on like a bunch of When Doves Cry playlist. I don't know, but
yeah. Well, I'm on actually a bunch of small playlists of people that heard the song, went to Spotify, liked it, and then so right now, according to Spotify, I'm on 5,000 playlists. I can't see all of them because Spotify only shows you in the phone. You only see people who've listened to 25 streams or more for I think the past week. On the Spotify for Artists website, I think you can see up to 100 playlists that you're on, but then it says 100 out of whatever, and mine's 5,000, which means there's mostly just individual playlists of people saving the song and putting it in a playlist. So yeah. Oh yeah, so where was I? Okay.
That's what I meant by When Doves Cry. You're on like Heartbreak too.
Right, exactly. Oh no, playlist. People are like, I'm depressed. Like,
yeah, they have their depressed. Like.
Exactly. Okay. So I've heard a couple things. How do you get on Discover Weekly?
Right.
And there's really not a lot of information about it, but basically what I gathered is that you have to have about 20,000 streams and you have to have a solid listener to save ratio, right? Because what happens is a lot of people, they'll sign up for a service that says guaranteed 10,000 Spotify streams, and there'll be bot countries where people, you can find videos of what bot farms look like, and there's different levels of sophistication.
That's a real thing? I've never seen that.
Oh yeah, it's totally real. So
shit.
You can see there'll be a wall of cell phones, and either someone's manually or controlled all from a computer, and they'll just stream the song
so
over and over.
Script that's like,
Yeah.
wow.
And then there's more sophisticated ones where you pay people a small amount. You know, in these countries where labor is really cheap, if the amount that you charge to get this amount of streams is higher than the cost it takes for them to have somebody sit in a room and just act like a real person,
right?
Have real benefits
Wow.
on these free accounts that still count to your stream, then you're going to have, 10,000 plays from Thailand that don't mean anything.
So people hear that, because I heard this. We had talked about this before we got into Entrepreneur, and it was like, well, all those numbers are just bullshit then.
Right.
And it's like, no, you can't think of the numbers as the goal, right? The numbers are the means to an end, right? People think of the numbers as an end in themselves. Well, how many, like you ask somebody, well, how many streams do they get? How many friends do they have? Well, da-da-da. It's like, that doesn't matter. It's like, if I have a 10,000 bot farm fan base, it's worthless.
Yeah.
If I have a 200 real people
It's
who
almost
discovered,
worthless,
who discovered my music through, like they related to it in some personal level.
It's completely different.
Right.
100%. And those are the kind of people that I was connecting with. And I know this because people would send me messages on Instagrams. Oh, I love your song. I relate to this, whatever, all sorts of stuff. And more people I've become friends with that I talk to on a regular basis just from that video.
Right.
So what happened is I didn't have the name of the video inside Instagram. It just played the text. There was no like, this is my name, whatever. So the people that commented would say, what's the name of the song? So the fact that I didn't have a title acted as a filter, because the people that really wanted to know would say, hey, what's the name of this? Right. Yeah.
I hope it's called I Hope You Die in a Fire.
Yeah. So I started saying, hey, the song is called I Hope You Die in a Fire. And then I started saying, hey, or some people would say, is this on Spotify? Whatever. Point is at some point, any single comment, I would respond to whatever they said and then said, by the way, you can jam it on Spotify, Grand Commander, Hope You Die in a Fire. And
so you have like on some of these like 3,000 comments. So over the course of months. So, but you went as it went.
Oh yeah, every single comment
today.
Yeah, every single comment. And eventually, I just started sending people to Spotify. I couldn't really send them because you can't post links. You can post links on Facebook, but not on Instagram. Instagram, you only have your bio. And I didn't have a link in the video. I do at this point as of 3 days ago, but on the one that got me into Discover Weekly, there's no link. It was just the video, and that was it. So if people want to know what it was, they had to comment. So as a result, my listener to save ratio was like 25%. And I hear that a solid one is supposedly anything from 5 to 10%. And that means like listener to save, the amount of listeners you have. So if you take the amount of saves you have, divide it by the amount of listeners, that's the listener to save ratio. And it was about 25%.
So this is kind of hard to replicate again, but like, you'd have to abstract some more details to really know, because what you're saying is these accidental circumstances, like them not having a link, it filtered people who didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Or people who only gave a little bit of a shit.
Yep.
People had to like make the extra effort to find it. And those people are going to have a tendency like, I really do like this song. I'm going to add it to my Heartbreak playlist.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know who wants to listen to that when they're at the gym. But maybe they do. I don't know. You know what I mean? But it's like, maybe that's a great gym song, actually. Next time I go jogging.
So what was crazy is after it was 9,600 streams, I wake up and I check Spotify for artists like I do every morning, and all of a sudden it's like 1,200 plays. I'm like, holy shit, I got 1,200 plays yesterday. Like, how is that possible? And I look, and all of a sudden, because you have these different sections inside Spotify for artists where it shows you algorithmic playlists, which for me was always 0, and then it would be individual playlists, and that was almost 0 because nobody was listening to it 25 times. So it was basically just 0. I had no information. I'm like, some people are listening to it. You could see the cities and the countries, and I started to have the cities and countries populating because the videos played all over the world. But then suddenly it said Discover Weekly, and I was like, wow, 1,000 people listened to it yesterday, and then I started thinking about it, and it's impossible to know the exact number that you make from each stream because it depends on the country. It depends on if they have a premium profile. I think at the time I was making this calculation based on assuming that the average stream is 0.4 cents. And I think now it's probably closer to 0.33. So what I'm going to say isn't going to completely line up with reality. However, I started thinking, and I don't know how much I was spending per day. It was somewhere between $5 and $10. I was like, if I could get 2,500 streams a day, then if I spend $10 a day on the ad, it's basically paying for itself. And I have like a perpetual motion machine that I can keep promoting the song with. So why not keep spending $10 a day as long as the spins?
So your revenue would be an ideal world. Ideal world, you'd be,
Ideal world,
more.
I'd be making a lot more. I'd be making profit.
But if it's just self-contained,
right? I'm like, if I'm not spending any money, like, why stop?
So people who are spending $1,200 a month for a local person to be their publicist, it's like if they could get themselves into this kind of situation, you have a zero cost. Now the cost of your labor to set it all up and like go through the process, but then you have a zero cost self-promoting agent.
Yeah.
That's just spinning in a loop. You're making the money that's then going back into the promotion dollars to find new fans.
Right. The thing is, like, I don't know that I can replicate even myself the whole, like, I have other songs now that are above 10,000, one's at 12, one's at 13,000.
Yeah, I think the missing ingredient in this whole formula is your song has to be really good.
Well, it's got to be catchy, you know?
Yeah.
It's got to be something people want to listen to.
To me, it's like if I was just picking like my top 10 favorite bands and songs ever written, like I Hope You Died in Fire is not in it because I like B.B. King or whatever. But it's like, my point is, when I hear that song, it's like, oh, it's like, this sounds like it should be in a movie, or this, it has like some like alternate quality that belongs in its own category of timeliness. You know, like, oh, that sounds like a point in space that I want to reference again. Like if I hear certain songs, like a Sam Cooke tune that I may not even like, it takes me somewhere. And I'm like, oh, this is a thing. And it's like, I Hope You Died in Fire. It's like, oh, this is a thing.
Yeah.
You know, like this is there's a quality to it.
Well, check it out. This is the flip side of what you're saying, is that in my Discover Weekly, there are tons of songs I don't like.
Right.
You know, that it's like the whole description you just gave, I would not apply to any of those songs.
Right.
But they're in the algorithm because somehow, some way, these people have found their audience.
Right.
So really, I think more than anything, what you have to realize is if you put in the time to find your audience, you're going to have more success than any other method.
Yeah, what's that? Circa says this, right? He's like, the old, motto in marketing was, you're going to catch more flies with honey than vinegar, right? And it's like, it's like what I learned. So Circa's response is like, but what if you sell vinegar and you hate flies?
Right.
Right? It's like, he's like, there's an audience for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't just be like, well, the reason your song didn't do well is because it's too sad or yours is too happy or da-da-da. It's like, no. If it's like musically sound, like it makes sense musically.
I mean, I've heard some weird shit in Discover Weekly.
Right.
You know?
But I'm saying, I think that like, there's something for everybody, and we get excited and it's like, wow, it's clipping. But there's something useful. There is some utility to almost every kind of music. I'm going to pause this
and restart it because I don't want a giant file that suddenly is like, you've maxed out your memory, it's all gone.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so you were saying, we were talking about your journey through, from recording song to uploading a music video to directing people to Spotify. Something
for everyone.
And we were to a point that, your content, as long as it's as good as you can possibly make it, you can find somebody.
Even like the good or the bad, I almost feel like that's a hard way to put it. It's because for a long time I was really stuck on like, I want my recordings to sound professional.
Right.
And I just think that it has to be the most you possible. Like we're talking like a thing.
Right.
Some kind of thing that is, it's like that feeling where you want to meet someone and you hope that that person you meet will see all the good things about you that make you, you. It's like that kind of personal uniqueness. I feel like everybody has that like imbued within their musical DNA. And the more of that you can put into a song, I think the better chance you have of resonating with the audience that will eventually, of finding your people who would resonate with your style.
Right. Yeah, and it's what we were saying in the kitchen, like your particular song, it's like it has a quality that like I have a 7-year-old niece, and it's like I sing the song like as a joke sometimes in the kitchen. If somebody pisses me off, I'll be like, I hope you die in a fire. And so the little 7-year-old has latched on to it. She's never even heard the actual song.
Yeah.
And I was saying like the thing like in your song, it's hard to explain what a thing is, but like a thing that's a part of your tune in particular is it has this kind of sing-songy quality. Like I was saying, it could almost be like the ending credits on like a kid's theme show or something, right? It's like very happy and joyous. But then the lyric is, I hope you die in a fire.
Right.
And it's like...
It definitely has a thing, you know? Like, it's got a humorous element. It's got things. And this is also, I think, worthy of mentioning, is that any of the music I ever made before was always some type of, like, super rhythmic, progressive... technical, all the adjectives you use to describe music that is hard to find an audience for, or basically has an audience of mostly musicians, or the very small amount of people who are intense music nerds that like highly technical music.
Right.
But that was how I identify myself for a long time. And I got to a certain point where a lot of stuff happened and Grand Commander was born, where I started thinking about the songs I used to listen to before I developed a lot of bass technique, and before, over a period of years, I felt like I painted myself into a corner where the right music or the best music or what I wanted to express was just this highly progressive technical stuff that, you know, took years to master and blah, blah, blah.
Like the Jedi side of music.
Right. And then I look back and it's like Manowar is one of my favorite bands. AC/DC is one of my favorite bands. Even Black Sabbath. You know, none of them are particularly technical. You can make a case for Black Sabbath being progressive here and there. But the point is, they made normal songs. You know, AC/DC specifically. I love AC/DC. Or Parliament Funkadelic. Right. Sure, the groove is on just an insane, I would say, genius level. But none of it is really that hard to play. Grooving that hard, whatever. The point is like, what about that side of myself that I hadn't really explored?
You also are a big fan of St. Vincent.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, there's that whole thing, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, you know, Tom Waits, music that lives on kind of the darker side. And I just realized there was a lot of stuff that was outside of this technical, progressive, funky metal realm that I hadn't really explored. And so I Hope You Die in a Fire, I feel like, and some other songs from the album came from a place of these songs that I felt like were buried and types of feelings that I wanted to get across. And I'd never written any music, really. I'd written a couple songs and lyrics, but I think a bunch of songs were just saved up, and that was one of the ones that came out. I was really embarrassed when I first wrote it to show it to anybody, because I was like, oh, people are going to think this song is a joke. Even one of my best friends, I remember when I wrote it, I told my friend that I wrote kind of like a jokey Americana song because I was too afraid to tell him about that I wrote a song called I Hope You Die in a Fire, because I thought it'd be like, haha, that's funny. You know, it was weird. And that was like one of my closest friends. And the same thing when I released it, I was like, Jesus Christ, like people can think this is a fucking joke. But, you know, although the title has humor in it, it's like it did come from a vulnerable space. And I think, you know, it's like the thing that I always hope people put into their music. It's like I feel like, and I tried to put that into that song and all the songs I'm doing now. Like I don't care now if a song is progressive or technical. And I have technical parts, like Bad Bad Rabbit's fucking technical as hell. It's super hard to play. Mm-hmm. I just don't care anymore if something is progressive or whatever. I just want to write a song that makes me feel a certain way and get something off my chest, you know, that I'm working through.
It's like, I think it was probably around the time when you were seeing the first success with your Hope You Die in a Fire, like text campaign. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we had this discussion. So this was over a year ago. I remember there's something about like, I think it was John Mayer who said it. He was like, you know, my better songs, the songs that have been the most successful, he's like, are so specific. He's like, they have like very specific details. Like they'll have like a detail of like the smell of her hair or like the color of her shirt. And he's like, and those are the songs people remember the most. He's like, and I always thought like that was wrong. Like you want to make things so universal and so broad, they'll appeal to everybody. And he's like, he figured out that the more pinpoint specific he was to his own experience, the more universal it was.
Yeah, and
like
that's
the
strange.
more of your exact self like, I've learned how to forget. It's like I can see when you sing those lyrics, specifically the mental process that I've gone through after a breakup where I'm over it.
Yeah.
Like where I'm finally over it. But at the end of it, I'm still like, fuck that bitch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like, I'm totally over it. But if somebody brings up her name in a conversation, I don't feel anything except this, like, there's a file with like all the terrible things that went wrong. And it says, I hope you die in a fire on it. You know what I mean? I'm like, hold on, let me open that folder and relive all those experiences.
What's funny is that for me, is that song for me specifically, and I hope it means whatever it means to you, cool. What it means to me specifically is that I realized I wasn't over it. That was the whole point for me.
No shit.
Yeah, that I was trying to convince myself. So like the lyrics, I've learned how to forgive. This is me saying this to myself, and also things I see in other people where you'll meet someone and they'll talk about all this stuff they've gone through and how they're mature now. Like, or like, okay, here's a perfect example. You meet guitar players who are like, oh, Kirk Hammett, like, yeah, I played Metallica in high school, but I don't play that anymore. And like, I'm a mature guitarist now. It's just these people like, I'm grown up, I'm so past that.
Yeah, people are like, oh, he just played the pentatonic scale.
Yeah,
like,
okay. Pentatonic.
Okay.
And those same people will be like, BB King's the best. And it's like, yay, you know, so his pentatonic's okay, but Kirk Hammett's aren't.
Right, yeah.
Whatever. So you'll hear people and be like, yeah, I'm mature, I'm past that. So the first lines of the song, I've learned how to forgive. These childish games are behind me. I regret the things I did. So those first couple lines, it's like I'm lying to myself. I regret the things I did and resent what reminds me. And that's like with the truth starting to creep in, where you're trying to say like, oh, and this specifically, I was like, I can look back on this relationship because I'm totally over it. And this actually happened. And then you start going back and then you start remembering the stuff that you forgot about. And suddenly like you remember a fight. Yeah. And then you remember like what your point was in the fight, what their point was. And suddenly you're just like, oh, you're back in the argument. Right. So like the lyrics, the point was for it to degenerate. And when day turns to night, and resent what reminds me, when day turns to night, and you close your eyes and hope to dream, remember this, I hope you die in a fire. And by that point, you're like, oh, fuck you, motherfucker.
That's funny. I've known this song for 2 years, and I never asked you what it meant.
Yeah.
What an asshole. But yeah, to me, it was always like, it's much less sarcastic now than I thought it was. But I always thought it was like very sarcastic. It was like, it's like one of those things like you see like in a movie where like somebody's pissed off, or like you're in a situation where you're not allowed to be pissed off. And you're like, okay, yeah, I fucking hate you. Yeah, bye, buddy. You fucking douche. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah,
it was like you were to me it was always like you were maintaining. Like,
right.
Yeah, I hope you died in fire, bitch.
Well, see, I think I was maintaining, but I was lying to myself that I was where I was when I wasn't there at all.
Right.
Or there's like an open wound festering beneath the surface, that you're ignoring, and then suddenly someone says something, or you touch a nerve, or you drive down a street where you had a fight and just something triggers a memory.
Right.
And then, of course, the guitar solo.
Now it makes more sense.
Yeah.
So I was always like, why is that guitar solo there?
Yeah, no, the guitar solo is like the fire.
That's when it's like you're like back in it.
Yeah,
that makes
that's
so much sense.
The screaming.
Yeah. But see, this is something too. Like, I love songs where there's like an internal blueprint, and it's like because it gives the song a feeling of unity and structure. I hate songs, like one of the greatest albums of all time is Dark Side of the Moon. And the tunes I like the least on that, where I'm like skipping it, are the ones where it's like totally free, or it's like that lady like, it's like, oh, this is cool. And like 3 minutes in, I'm like, okay,
yeah,
enough, and it's like next song that's like formulated again. It's like there's that one Pink Floyd album where it's just like, it's like E minor to A for 22 minutes. It might be Animals, and big Pink Floyd fans love that. And I'm like, it's cool. Like if I'm really on drugs or something, and I need background scenery music to like my experience, it's cool for that. But if I want to hear a song and like relive an experience,
you're
like,
listening to Time, or
exactly, or Us and Them, or or Breathe, or it's like,
yeah, totally. I don't know. It's hard to even talk about that album because so many things had to happen for it to be what it was. But right. I get your point, and also it makes me want to start talking about Gates, because Gates by Allison Research, the company that became Valley People that make the dynamite, which is a compressor I'm obsessed with, that we have.
Yeah.
if you read Alan Parsons, he said a huge part of the sound of Dark Side of the Moon was gates. And because
analog gate.
Yeah, gates open up and they change the attack characteristic of the sound. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Steve Albini uses those. Exactly,
Dynamites?
The Dynamites.
Yeah.
That drum video. I was like, oh shit, he uses them on the kick. I was like, badass. Because we've been using them on kick a lot recently. And I was like, huh. And I was like, should we gate the kick so much? And it's like, well, it's not like a digital gate. It's a different thing.
Yeah, totally different.
Like the way it opens is like musical.
Yeah. So I feel like before we took our break, we were on some long thought train with I Hope You Die in a Fire. And I feel like we kind of left it and went on a different branch, which isn't bad. But
Yeah.
Can I sum it? Is there anything to sum up? Is that it's still hitting 2,000 to 3,000 plays a day. I've tweaked my ads, my audience several times with the exact same ad. And I don't know, people keep saving it and listening to it. And it's been paying for itself for over a year. So it continues. I don't know what else to say.
Perpetual motion machine.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I take away, and I take away from your friend watching this happen for you, is that there is a way. Like you're not the victim of your circumstances, and you don't have to get lucky or catch a break to make this thing work and move itself. It's like there is an underlying methodology that can be applied, and there might be, there's probably a lot. Like after being exposed to Indiepreneur, I see these things all the time, and I click on them, and I can kind of, after watching Indiepreneur, weed out the bullshit very quickly, where somebody's like, there's certain giveaways that I'm like, nope. I'm like, I can't think of one right now, but
well, now sometimes on Instagram, I'll see someone or an ad will come across my feed, and my response used to be, "Oh, like what the fuck is this person saying? Like blah blah blah. Who cares?"
Oh, there was one. I thought of it. There was this one. He's like, paid advertisements. Those are fucking stupid. And I got this in my feed from a paid advertisement.
Right.
I was like, okay.
That's a pattern interrupt though.
Yeah. Well, sure, but it's
Yeah.
like, but then he literally goes on to like, no, you want to build organic like reach and all, and it's like, no, it's like I'm not going to accept at the beginning a philosophy that undermines its own philosophy. Like if
Right.
somebody's like, give me a math equation that proves math doesn't exist. And it's like, it's like, well, give me a reason for why I should believe your reasons, and it's like, but that is a reason, like.
Yeah, totally. Well, a lot of times now I just see posts on Instagram that I normally would think are stupid or post
Right.
anywhere. And then if it has a lot of likes and a lot of shares, first I'm like, well, are these bot likes or are these real? And if there's
Right.
engagement and you look at the comments and people are really talking, all of a sudden I'll watch it. And that part of me that used to get offended, you're triggered or whatever you want to say,
Right.
that isn't on. And I'm just like, what is the thing people are doing? How are they connecting with their audience? I'm just so curious now to where all this content that I thought was worthless, something like people are connecting with an audience, and it's a very kind of 2020 thing, which, how much of what they're doing is modern, how much of what I'm criticizing is me being stuck in, wherever we came from, where you got to know someone to catch a break and blah, blah, blah.
Right. Yeah, it's like, I explained it to somebody like this. This is like my take on it. And it's like, it's very abstract because I'm an abstract thinker. But it's like humanity is moving in a direction, right? It's like you go from like, we were apes in the desert and then, the Ice Age. And then we evolved and we created language, right? And language is a form of like taking, like people are like, well, what's telekinesis or telepathy? It's like, it's talking. Like, you know what I mean? No,
Yeah.
there's an idea in my head, a set of abstractions, and I'm projecting them out through a medium, and it's hitting your ear. And then we had writing, and then finally we had computers, and now and so like everything's on a trajectory. I believe in like this like singularity idea that one day humans and machines will meld, and like you'll think at the speed of light, and like you'll be part of like some AI mesh or whatever. And I think Facebook, social media is like, it's like the telephone was a big advancement from writing letters.
That's kind of the shit that Elon Musk was talking about in the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But so like apply that like general like template of history in the course of like human history to
I think you're right. We do need a limiter on your voice.
yeah, sorry, because I like my volume fluctuations are great. But so like
It's just one though. It's just one
yeah.
peak.
Apply that to history though. So it's like, look, there's a situation where the reason MySpace fell apart was because it was too advertising at some point. It was like I could not get on MySpace where like half my friend requests were porn stars, and not even real porn stars, like dudes pretending to be porn stars in order to like mine your information. And it's like Facebook wants to avoid that. Facebook doesn't want you. Mark Zuckerberg wants us to live online. He wants one day when our brains exist in the cloud.
Talking to mine. I'm going to wire you into a limit.
Hey.
No.
Talking to yours?
Keep talk, because I'm going to rewire your mic.
What are you saying?
No, keep talking into
Oh,
mine.
talking to yours, I see. There's a point where, I don't know what I was saying. There's a point where,
MySpace history.
Yeah. Zuckerberg wants people to live on Facebook. Like, he literally wants people, like, one day in the future when we all live on the internet, Facebook will be the place the country everybody lives in, right? And so you're never going to get to that point where Facebook controls everything and Facebook is the place everybody wants to be if Facebook is not a fun place to be, if Facebook sucks, if Facebook is not entertaining. So if your feed is constantly getting blown up by like musicians saying, hey, come to my show, hey, follow this link, hey, download my song, and like that's what your Facebook feed becomes.
Let's see if you're back on.
Hey.
Keep going.
Hey. Limiter. Hey. We're setting a limiter. Hey.
Yeah.
Dope. Yeah. Sorry, we were clipping the mic really bad. That's why we had to fix this.
Ketner's is Ketnering, and he gets excited, which is good.
Yeah.
But that was clipping the mic, which is bad.
Right.
So I wired in one of our analog compressor limiters called the Crane Song Tracker.
Which I suggested at the beginning of the podcast, but we didn't.
And I said no.
Yeah, it's okay. So my point is, Facebook wants to create an environment that's fun. And it doesn't have to be fun in the sense that like you always have a good time. Like even if it's just you fighting with people, Facebook wants you to be interacting on its platform. If your Facebook feed, your personal Facebook algorithmic feed becomes filled with advertisements for shit you have zero interest in,
yeah, it's not fun.
Everybody will leave Facebook. So Facebook has created this ad business manager thing where you can design your ads to look like just native content, to look like you're just sharing your life with people.
Which is what they want.
Exactly. And you can only, Facebook's giving you all these tools to find the people that will care about that. Like they will actually be the people. So you're not, and here's the thing. It's like when I'm old enough, you are too, definitely. When you had your first band, you had to have somebody graphic design you something. You had to go print flyers, and then you had to like stick them in windshields or like hand them out. Like, and it was so awkward and it was so fucking pointless. It's like, I'd spend $150 printing and like designing all this shit. Then I have to talk people into handing this shit out. And you're putting it on completely random people's cars. And like you might think, well, I'll go to the Deep Ellum neighborhood because there'll be people who like music there. And maybe one person for all that effort shows up at your show. It's like now the way Facebook is, you can find people that like music exactly like the music you're making.
Right.
You can find people that like music exactly like the bands that are on the bill with you. You can find people who have been to local shows in that place before, in that vicinity. You can find people who have liked the venue, and you can just target them.
Yeah.
You don't bother anybody else.
You can make a video talking specifically to people in a city, which I did, and then you send it only to that city, and it's super specific. So anybody in that city is going to see you saying, hey, Wichita, hey, Tulsa, and it's, yeah. I mean,
and you're not, and you can age range it. You're not gonna like say it's a 21 and up bar.
Only show 21-year-olds.
And don't target 85-year-olds because they're not going to show up.
God, the level of control you have in Business Manager, or you have an ad set which is an audience, say Pink Floyd. Just off the top of my head, because you're talking about it, and then you can have 5 different headlines, and you can say, well, what if you have, come to my show. I want to see you at the show. You want to catch a rock show? You could have all these tiny little tweaks. And then Facebook will send it to a bunch of people and will optimize to quickly tell you which headline is the best.
And so my whole point is we're approaching this technological singularity where people are literally, you're living on your phone more than you're living in the space around you, right? You're living on your computer more than you're living on the actual space around you. You want that. Facebook needs you to prefer its platform, over every other platform. And so
when we say Facebook, we mean Facebook and Instagram.
And it's everything Facebook does. But whatever medium you're using, they prefer you to use their platform over others, right? Because that's how they continue to exist. So you need to, it's like play the game. It's like, but it's not even play the game. It's like, look, Facebook.
Use the tools.
Yeah, Facebook's like, here's all this free information. All this data we've gathered on our users is yours. It's free to anybody to like access. You can find out information about your city, all that, like micro details. so you find out all this information, and it's like Facebook's like, here, if in the way the algorithms are so cool, they're like, hey, this ad sucks. Like, it doesn't say that exactly, but it's like, so we prioritized all your money you were spending to this ad because it was better, and we know that because we ran many tests on people in one day across thousands of users, and we picked the best ad set for you.
I know. And then I see friends on Instagram that will post a YouTube video of a song that Facebook doesn't show to anybody because obviously they don't want to send people to YouTube.
Right.
And those people turn around and bitch and like, oh, the algorithm is against me and they just want my money.
Right.
Well, it's like they do want your money, but you got to use their tools in the way they were designed, or what do you think's going to happen?
My kids were in a music video from a local artist, and this local artist has really great music, works really hard. They spent a lot of time and effort and energy filming all day long. We all had to go buy 90s clothes and all this stuff. And the music video was brilliant. And like, when this artist released it, it was just a YouTube link. And then like, I think underneath that, like another link to like where to download the song. And it was like, my new video. And it was like, and it was from the artist's page, and they didn't even sponsor it. First of all, they didn't even sponsor it. And then it's like, I think that video, last time I checked, it's like 2 years old now. It's like less than 1,000 views.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see your friends release music and put their money and their lives and blood, sweat, and tears into something that nobody sees when there's an alternative and people don't believe it because they just don't have enough information.
Right. And it's like, and just to reiterate, you're at 700,000 Spotify streams, and your video on Facebook is at 860,000 plus. Right?
Yeah.
So by the spring, your Spotify is going to cross the 1 million threshold.
I mean, maybe. What's interesting is I could drop out of Discover Weekly at any point.
Right.
I mean, I'm still sending people to Spotify now. I changed my ads, so I'm verifying. I know how many people are clicking going to Spotify, but not exactly. But I know that people are going. That gets into super specific ad stuff. But yeah, as long as Discover Weekly keeps me in their algorithm, then if I can keep this trajectory for a few more months, I should be able to cross the threshold. Maybe 4 to 5 months, I think.
Right. And this is, I mean, like, totally honest. Like, I mean, I don't know if you want to share the numbers. What's your total, not minus, but your just money you gave to the ad world out of algorithms? How much have you spent?
Probably $2,800, which sounds like a lot, except that I've made $2,000 back, and people are like, oh, well, that means you lost $800. But the thing to remember is I make average $275, $300 a month from Spotify itself, and they pay on like a 3-month delay. So I'm thinking if you take, 250 times 3 is 750. It's like, I think the money that I've spent that's gone over what I've made, it's in the pipeline because I already have the plays, meaning I'll get it over the course of a few months. So it's pretty close to even.
Yeah, but the thing is, I have friends, it's like, who are not recouping any money on their investment.
Well, we spent like $20,000 on a song, right?
Yeah, that have spent $1,200 a month plus the recording costs, plus whatever, right? And it's like, this was self-recorded, self-mixed. Now, you paid somebody else to do the master. You paid Greg Calby,
yeah,
right, at a Sterling Sound. But, okay, most of your cost is self-contained. And so minus your cost of learning everything, you're at less than $3,000, which is roughly what some of these publicists are charging for 2 months.
Yeah. Well, okay, here's a yes and no, though, because like all this gear is money that I've invested over. Plus, I mean, all the panels we made.
But there's a return on invest because it's capital.
I mean, there is. It's true. But the thing is,
you can make more music with it.
Yeah, but the thing is that whoever is watching this, they can't just go and be in the same system I'm in immediately. Because I know a lot of people looking at us being like, okay, cool, I want to self-record a song. How do I start? Right. So it's like, it's not, you can't directly compare.
But you did start with the SM7 and the RME.
That's true. Yeah. Most of this shit I don't think I even used on I Hope You Dine a Fire. So I don't know. It's hard to say because everyone has their own unique life and their own unique path. Like I happened to work in a studio for a couple of years. It's like I'm really interested in the audio engineering side. You are too. Mm-hmm. So for me, it makes a lot of sense to do it myself, where I get into the plugins and the mixing and the acoustics and the whole process. I find fascinating.
And I know their structure.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people, they're like, well, I just want to write music. I don't want to record. I don't want to do any of this. And that's fine. It's just hard. It's hard to know who to trust because it's really hard to figure out, what goes into making a song, what goes into recording. Everybody, after they record a song or an album, goes back and like, fuck, if I had only known this when I started, right? And I think a lot of times there's a sticker price where someone's like, if you could record for $300, you think, oh, it's not that good. Like if you can buy a game for like $10, but the same game is $40, you'll think, oh, I want the $40 game.
Right.
So some people will be like, oh, I spent, $7,000 on the single, so it must sound good.
Right. Yeah. Which I've heard a lot of $20,000 mixes out of Dallas studios that I thought sounded like dog shit. And it's like, but the thing is, it's like, imagine they had gotten the same mix for less money.
Mm-hmm.
And then the difference in, what they paid for the mix, let's say their $20,000 mix, they only paid $10,000 for, right?
Yeah.
And then they put $10,000 to ad budgeting because you're crossing into this million threshold after a year for a less than $3,000 ad budget.
Right.
What if you'd had 10,000 or running the same metrics, right? And it's like, what if you had I know one particular individual who spent over $30,000 on their first record and was already starting their next record. And I'm just like, hey, maybe take a step back. Let's recalibrate here. What if you could do the record for $5,000? Right?
Yeah.
What if you could what if you could do the record for $2,000? What if you didn't do a record? What if you just did a single?
It's hard though. I mean, I would say definitely it's really hard, man, because it's like, I don't know anybody's position. So anybody that watching this could be in a band that likes to record, a band that doesn't record,
right,
in a band that has been through the process.
And their capital resources could be, $30,000 wasn't a big deal.
Right.
But it's a huge deal to me.
But yeah, I mean, you get to the point where it's like the hardest thing in life. Like, what is the right decision to make now?
Right.
Like when you go to a studio and you're talking to these engineers, they start telling you how much it's going to cost, and your eyes are getting wide with all this equipment, and then you walk into the room and everybody claps, like the clap is going to magically give you some sort of idea of how good it's going to sound.
Right, I love that.
Yeah.
I used to do that too.
Yeah.
I'd walk around the room and be like, and I'd be like, what? Yeah, it sounds real reverberant over here. And they're like, well, that's our live reverberant area.
It means it's a good room.
Yeah.
It's hard to figure out. It's just fucking hard to figure out how to start.
So this is an interesting point. What happened to us? I met Sam. This is important. How did I meet Sam? I was teaching guitar lessons at a synagogue, Chabad in Uptown, to some rabbis. And one of them opened we got into an argument about the book of Job. My dad is a Southern Baptist preacher. So
this is the Sam and Ketner origin story.
Yeah, so I know a little bit about the Bible. And so he pulls out, Tanakh.
Who pulls it out?
Hanan did.
Okay.
And he's one of the rabbis. And he pulls out a Tanakh and he starts quoting from the book of Job, but he's like rocking back and forth and he's singing. And so I pick up a guitar and he's playing Dorian. Or he's singing Dorian, and I was like, I started playing So What?
Dorian's like a scale-ish type thing for anybody who doesn't know about modes and scales.
Well, he's playing something that's very common in jazz. I'll put it that way, right? And funk. And so I just start playing a Miles Davis tune underneath him, and it's the coolest shit. He's like, dude, we should do a whole record of this. So flash forward, they have their own body of traditional Jewish music, and he asked me to produce a record in Dallas. So they flew in all these rabbis from Brooklyn, New York, to sing on this record, and Sam was the engineer at Palmyra Studios in Palmer, Texas, and that's how we met. But I realized, man, like that project, it went way off the rails because these guys didn't have a background of music.
Not at first, though. The first thing was fucking easy and smooth.
It was great, yeah. It was once, too many chefs got in the kitchen who didn't know what they were talking about.
Later.
Yeah, but I figured out was like, damn, it can go off the rails in the studio if people are wasting time and you're paying, 4 engineers and a producer, and then you're paying singers, and then you're paying musicians to come in, and then you're paying the studio day rate. And it's like, this can get really expensive. I was like, what's a studio? And Sam was like, well, it's a room that sounds good. It's a nice microphone. It's a nice preamp. And then it's an engineer that knows what the fuck they're doing. That's what a studio is. And then what makes good music is your source has to be really good, right? You have to have a good song and a good performance. And I was like, well, we were mixing in this bedroom, and I was like, well, how do we make this into a studio? And it's like a piece at a time, we slowly kind of figured something out. And it's like, now, I track in this room and it's got a sound, it's dead. And it's like, but I compare it to really expensive places I've tracked, and I'm like, I kind of liked what I did in the Bear Factory better, on a much cheaper mic through a much cheaper preamp. because the room sounds good. And there's an engineer here who gives a shit, you know, and who's not just trying to like. The other thing is, like, a lot of times we've done projects with people and we've stopped them. We're like, hey, look, before you give us any more money, and like, you know, we'll take your money, but before you give us any more money, do you want to go home and practice? Do you want to, like, here's a metronome, here's some points of origin in your development that if you went home and worked on this, you would save $1,000 on the other end, or several $1,000s.
Yeah, well, I wonder how much of that is, half of that is me in my heart wanting to impart how good it feels when you lay something down to a click in time and the kind of resonance and groove it gives it. And the second half is I fucking hate fixing bad rhythm and taking hours and hours and hours editing. So it's double.
Yeah, it's like, and then you run into this game of like, it's like, look, I can tell this guy he sucks and we're not going to do your mix because like the mistakes are so, you can release something with our name on it that sounds bad, or you can fix it. And then you could say, hey, and then you have to negotiate, hey, it turned out we had to edit your timing on your guitar for 10 hours because you have to move the transient and then you have to move it with the drummer. And it's like, to make it sound like real and not like crap, you can't just hit quantize like people think. So it's like, then you want to be like, hey, you only paid us to mix for 3 hours. We're going to bill you for 10. And they're like, but I don't want you to. And it's like, so my point is, if we figured out this system of like, look, how can we bypass having to go into like a $10,000 situation where we're going to use this studio? It's going to cost us $10K just to use the space. It's like, well, hey, we just need mics, preamps, and a room. That sounds good.
And it's not cheap. The trade-off is it goes slow.
Right.
It takes a long time to get enough money to buy the gear. And then you buy a bunch of wrong shit and do a lot of stuff that you don't need. And it's like, there are huge differences between us and some kind of world-class studio. Right. However, you know, it was enough for I Hope You Die in a Fire to sound good enough to get whatever. And I feel like I just want to start talking about your song at this point.
To get a million streams.
Yeah, though, to get a million.
You know, well, what I'm saying is it was good enough to get a million streams. And there's studios in Dallas that have our most expensive microphone probably cost $1,000, maybe $1,500. And it's like, there's studios that have, you know, $40,000 mint condition with original tube and like no modification, you know, Telefunken 251s. And it's like, and I've heard stuff done on that mic in that studio in that room from that engineer that I think sounds bad. You know? And it's like,
I guess the thing is like, I don't know I worked at one studio. I don't know what the other studios have or what they sound like. I do hear some songs that I think sound bad. I also hear songs from local artists that sound great.
Right.
It just seems like a lot of it is too expensive for people to be able to have money left over to promote.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And that's the hard part.
Yeah, it's like even if...
Is
like,
that you can, but you need the money. If you blow all your money in recording, how do you promote?
It's like I'm also interested. People a lot of times, I used to have this attitude. I thought I needed to see a Neve. I thought I needed to see a bunch of Neumann microphones because somebody told me those were good brands, and I just assumed. And it's like, I remember talking to somebody on the phone who wanted to record with us. He's like, well, do you have a Neve console? And I said, for what? And there was just silence. And he goes, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because somebody told him that he respected you need a Neve console. And I was like, what would I...
Good record, yeah.
I was like, well, we're multi-tracking. And I was like, what if you don't like the sound of the Neve preamp to begin with? What if you like some other preamp we have? I was like, we do have Neve clones. I was like, but like, what if you hear it and it's like, oh, you know, actually I like the Harrison better. Or I just like plugging into the RME. It's really clean. It's like, why would you let that be the deciding factor of how much money you're going to spend and then have left over on the other end to promote?
Okay, so I'll say this. The reason I'm struggling with what we're talking about is that somebody who's watching this, who's in a band or a solo artist, whatever, who wants to record, we have given no solution. So we basically said there's a huge problem. This is how we solve the problem in our way. What do you do? So I guess my answer to that is, first of all, there's no rule that you have to have your music mixed by the person that recorded it.
Right.
So what I would say is a solution to this problem of how much it costs is, one, find all the music that this person or whoever... Okay, let me back up. Anybody in the world can mix your music. If you record in the studio, you can say, I just want to record, give me the stems, you bring in a hard drive, everything you do, boom, it gets put on a hard drive and your session is contained and it can then be mixed by anybody.
Like Billie Eilish and her brother, they don't do their own mixes.
Right. They send it off to, I can't remember what his name is.
So they didn't have to be somebody you know. Like,
yeah.
You could look up the most famous mixing engineer in the world.
Absolutely.
Like,
if you pay enough money, they'll mix your thing. So how do you find a good mix engineer? You just listen to other stuff they've done. And if you like it, then give them a call. I mean, it's that simple.
Right.
So, I mean, fuck, get on Fiverr and type in mix engineers, and you can probably find some guy in like Sri Lanka or wherever.
They could also ask us.
Right.
We also do mixing, but
if you like our sound, if you don't come to us.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's the whole thing. Is like, I wouldn't want someone to see this podcast and be like, oh, they're going to be good because they say this equipment. It's like, no.
No. Right.
Listen to I Hope You Dine a Fire or Ketner's new song that we'll talk about shortly. And if you dig the vibe, that's our niche. You know, if you do hip hop or reggae or whatever, it's like, go find someone who's the best in the world at that, or find someone who's underground who has skills that you resonate with, that's made some songs that sound close to what you want, and see how much they charge. Work out a deal. Pay, $300 for a track. Don't pay $3,000. Like, you'd be surprised the quality you can get if you just get on the internet and look for people who do what you want and do a little bit of research. And then all that money that you save from not blowing it all at a local studio. And I'm not trying to take money away from local studios, but if they don't have a track record of making music or mixes that you think are up to the standard or even in the same style what you want, spend your money elsewhere and spend the rest of the money promoting your song.
And I think it helps. You don't have to be like a technician, but I think it helps to have some basic understanding of something, right? Like one I could give you an example of is like I have some friends that are traditional jazz musicians, and I've heard a lot of the records they've done in like some of the studios around town, and I can tell that the engineer has never listened to like a traditional jazz record. Mm-hmm. I can just tell, because it's like the mix choices are like, the kick drum sounds like it was designed for like a modern rock track, and then the upright bass has like all these frequencies that sound like they belong in like a hip hop track.
Yeah,
and it's like traditional bebop, and then the ratio of drums and bass to the total mix is wrong, because like a lot of times you can barely hear the drums and upright bass in like a Miles Davis recording. And it's like, but in these mixes, my friends are showing me, those are the most prominent things. It's like, walking bass and drum kit, and then whatever the lead instrument is so suppressed behind that feeling. And it's like, they're like, what is my record? And it's like, and you can't really listen to it and be like, it sounds bad, because it doesn't sound bad. It sounds wrong. That's what, for the genre. So it's like, it helps if like you listen to your favorite, like say you're a jazz musician, for example. If you listen, go find your favorite 5 jazz records and listen to them. Were they recorded live? Who recorded them? Where were they recorded at? What year were they recorded in, right? And it's like, kind of get those, how did they record it? I even look up pictures, like if I'm like, oh, I want this sound, I look up pictures of the session. And a lot of times on famous sessions, there's pictures. You don't know how accurate those are, right? Sometimes they're just promo shots. But I love pictures where I see a guy back then in a lab coat and he's moving like a baffleding. Like, he's not posing, like he's looking down, and you see another guy over there like writing down, like it's like there's somebody, like you see them working, and it's like, oh, okay, it puts you in a mindset. And then if you go to like this mix engineer, and it's like no offense to like modern guy, but say it's like a 21-year-old, and he's like, oh, my favorite band is
Five Finger Death Punch.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, cool, what do you think about Miles Davis? And he goes, who? It's like, maybe he's not the guy for you. It might be the studio for you.
But you know what?
It's like,
the thing is, though, is like, I still...
He might do a great job, too. I'm not saying... That's not sufficient information to negate him. But I'm just saying it's like...
Unfortunately, I think a lot of people have to go through spending some amount of money and going through the process to understand to know what they don't know, right? Because when I did my first album, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what to say. I didn't have any vocabulary for how to explain things to engineers. I just didn't know.
Right.
So it comes back in my head. You go in, you get a studio, you pay people to mix it, and then when it comes back, it sounds great because they're a professional. And you never think that there's an entire infinity of different mixes and different choices.
Right.
And it comes back and it's not what you want. And I think that you have to go through that at some point to understand. Like I think the first songs I recorded, I think I gave the engineer reference material, But you know, it was like AC/DC, and I remember when it was like AC/DC and like When the Levee Breaks by Led Zeppelin,
Right.
and they laughed and like, oh, so you want it to sound like the greatest music ever recorded? And I was
Right.
like, yes, that's what I want.
Right. Right.
But I remember specifically, I was like, I want the kick to sound metal, and it came back, and the kick sounded very modern metal. In my head, I was referencing the kick drum to sound like Rain and Blood, Dave Lombardo, 1986. And I was like,
Right.
damn, why doesn't this kick drum sound like fucking Dave Lombardo? Well, I didn't say that. I
Because
just
even
said,
metal is such.
right.
There's so many micro details and
But that's the thing.
infinite
It's
possibilities.
like, how do you? I don't know. There's some certain amount of just having to go through it and just having to record. So I just hope that whoever is going through it the first time doesn't think that spending a certain amount of money, $10,000 or $5,000 or just whatever, at some studio is enough.
Right.
I just hope that you can learn those lessons on a smaller budget. So you
Yeah,
can
I
learn
guess
more lessons with pushing the song later rather than being broke and frustrated that you have a song that doesn't represent what you want.
Yeah, I guess like for me, I'm just distilling my process out loud. It's like that's not the right process. That's just my process.
Right.
You know, for me, it's
Well, because
like
we've been, messing with stuff for years at this point.
right. Yeah, but it's like I feel like you have to have a process, and one of the the point I want to distill what you were saying earlier is you have to do some research.
Yeah.
You can't go in blind. You can't hit a target if you don't even know what a target looks like. And it's like you have to have some framework you're operating inside of, and it can't just be, which it was for me for a long time, do you have a bunch of Neumanns and Neves?
That's why we met.
Yeah. The only reason we met is because Paul Meyer had a bunch of Neumann and Neve, and they had a Neve console. But the thing is, that Neve console, it's like half the channels didn't work. We'd have to like turn the board off because it was not maintained. And it's like, was this really, there were like hours of lost time and money being spent because the Neve wasn't functioning correctly sometimes. Or the LA2A compressor wasn't working. One of the tubes was blown out. And it's like, like there's all these factors. I just thought like I just needed to see this logo, this name, and I was safe,
Right.
And, I mean, there's something to branding. Neves are nice and Neumanns are nice, but it's like if the Neve is broken and the Neumann, the capsule is, if it's those PCB capsules that have like disintegrated.
Yeah, I definitely have different questions I ask a studio now.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess in the same way, I remember when I was 13 playing at blues jams, there's this one triplet lick in the blues scale. And I remember thinking, man, if I could play that one triplet lick, what else could I want to learn as a musician?
I used to have that too.
And then I learned the lick. I'm like, oh shit, like I'm not there yet. And it's the same thing with studio. It's like you can't just be like, oh, I need an even a Neumann. It's like, no, you need a lot more.
Right.
Really, you got to find like an engineer that digs your sound and has some frame of reference for the style.
Right, right.
And then a mix engineer who could be or not be the same person who recorded it.
Right. Yeah, and I think there's just, we said this earlier in the kitchen, but like good is like the thing. You need a good performance, right? You need a really good performance. You need a good microphone. You need a good room. You need a good preamp, and you need a good engineer, right?
Well,
but it's like, but each one of those, there's like an infinity, because each one of those is subjective.
Right.
What's the good mic? What's the good performance even? Like, because I know when we've done multiple takes, there will literally be like almost like cussing matches over which take is better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's so subjective.
Yeah. I would just change good performance to like, I don't know, emotionally resonant. Something. Right. It's hard. The word good is loaded for me when it comes to performances.
Right.
Because people are like, am I good? Is this right? Is this wrong? It's like,
because it can be musically right.
Right.
There's these examples where it's musically wrong but good.
Right.
And like it's emotionally resonant, and then vice versa. And it's like, so like a lot of the greatest music in the world wouldn't exist if it was technically perfect. And it's like, and it probably a lot of things that could have been great because there was so much emphasis. But I can tell you can go the other way too. Like we had that experience in the studio where there was so much emphasis on like every single thing. That first project we did with the Hasidic music, there was so much emphasis on everything being like the best ever in terms of emotional resonance.
Yeah.
They're like, we got lost chasing that. And it was like, let's have 5-hour discussions about the feelings of this song. And it's like,
it's a hard balance.
Yeah. It's like, how about,
sometimes you just got to play music and stop talking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, there's that thing.
I have an example. Can I segue into your song?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in Ketner's debut single, Hotep Rock, that came out yesterday.
Right.
There's a part in the bridge, which it's this interesting sequence of major seventh chords. The song is pretty much a rock song until that point, and then it gets more harmonically interesting. And he didn't know, you didn't have a set vocal melody for the song, for that part.
Right.
You know, I mean, you did have some words, but there was a part where you wanted something.
I wanted a background.
And you didn't know what
whistle.
it was.
Yeah.
And we just hit record, and he just sang this crazy melody that did not fit anything logically you would think would go over those chords.
Right.
To the point where we even tried tuning it with, I don't know, what was revoice?
Yeah.
I think we tried making it perfect. And what was weird is that it sounded worse when we made it perfect. Like when it was perfectly in tune, it sounded wrong.
It was almost like that Jacob Collier thing where there's tuning, there's the grid tuning, and then there's all the tuning in between. And sometimes that's more correct. Right.
So he just did a take and something came out and we're like, wow, neither one of us could ever sit down and compose that. Right. I mean, it's your song. You could never compose what you wrote.
And there was no degree of like sitting with like a psychologist being like, get into your childhood emotions that would have made me perform that. It was literally, I was like, I hear something in my head.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, do it. And I was like, or whatever the fuck it was. Like it made no sense. And you were like, I remember in your face, you're like, that doesn't really work. And then we played it back and you were like, damn.
Oh yeah, it
was like, that's crazy. And I was like, cool. And then I tried to do it again and I never could.
Yeah, there was only one.
Yeah, it's
I don't know if James Brown actually said this, but I've been told, or I read somewhere that he said, first take is God, second take is man.
Right.
And it's, you know, talking about making demos and writing songs, whoever you are, you should have some kind of recording setup. And if the setup happens to be good enough to be something that can be used later, I mean, that's one of my goals is that when I first had Pro Tools in my recording setup, it was just to make demos because in my head, the process was make a demo, and then once the demo is made, go into a studio and do it for real, so it's professional.
Right.
And what happened is I go back and listen to my demos, and there's a thing that the demos have that never translates. So then it started becoming, well, what if, as I record my demos, they're all at a high enough quality to become
the thing.
Right.
Yeah. And
so it's like our setup here now.
Right.
Yeah, there's no demo. So you go and do a take. It's like we got our, you know, our guitars are always tuned when we record. The mics are set up. The sound shit doesn't move. I mean, some of it does, but whatever. The point is like you can just do a take, and if you dig it, it never has to be, well, now let's do it right when we do it later. It's like, we got it.
Yeah, we've also gotten into this thing. It's like, we used to put up mics that we were like, we'll use different mics later. It's like, now I make sure we put up the absolute mic out of our collection that we would dream of using is the one that goes up for the scratch track. And most of the time, since we've done that, the scratch tracks usually are, they're either part of the final take or they are the final take.
And it's not because we chose the right mic specifically. It's because that mic happened to be the one that caught the first take that came from that place that you want to capture.
Right.
And then it becomes part of the sound. So we hear that mic, we're like, well, you know, now it's part of the DNA of the song. Let's keep using this mic. And also using the mics over a certain amount of time, you start to have an idea for your preferences for which mics give you the kind of sound you want.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want, it's not that it's a wrong sound, but it's like a lot of times if I'm capturing the body of an acoustic guitar, I don't want it to be a 57. You know, like I don't want it to be like this $99 mic. I want it to be our best condenser mic or whatever. So it's like, well, why not start off with that?
Right.
If you have it, why not? Why not take your
don't
best?
Have it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to, I can't remember why, but I got obsessed with an RE20.
This is a clone of one. It's not a real one.
So I went to, and this happens. Anybody that has gear lust understands that you get obsessed about thinking about a certain piece of gear, and suddenly your life is incomplete and everything is wrong, and you're basically going to die unless you go out and spend money on this thing as quickly as you possibly can. And that happened with the RE20, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my God. I think for me, I wanted it for vocal tracks, and I called all the places, and Sam Ash had one, so I went and bought one and came home, whatever. I don't think I even kept any of the vocal tracks I recorded. But the next day, or, you know, within a few, because I didn't have it very long, suddenly I got buyer's remorse, and I was like, holy shit, I'm putting way too much money on my credit cards. I got to return it. And I did. But before I returned it, we recorded the acoustic guitars on his new song.
Yeah, on Hotep Rock. And it's not a mic normally you see on acoustic guitars. And it was like, well, let's just see. It was like we were just taking through its paces. That's another thing. If you can multitask, like you got a new piece of gear. Like this is something Warren Hewart does a lot. He has a new piece of gear that he's demoing, but he uses it on a session.
Right.
You might as well like, okay, let's see what it does. Like, and already have that I'm demoing the gear, but also have like I'm also using it now in real time.
Right.
And if it doesn't work, of course, you'll have to redo it, sure. But it's like I'm using it in real time to find out what it does. So you're saving time and money a lot of times doing that.
Well, also you're not like playing. Like I don't like the idea of like let's just play and record bullshit we'll never use.
Right.
It's like sure that has its place, but why not? Let's like work on a song and maybe we'll capture something
like
magical that can.
A guy messaged me the other day. Actually, said, "Can I just come in your studio and just pay you money to just like fuck around?" And I was like, "No." And I was like, "I mean, you can, but I'm going to charge you more than I normally charge people because I don't want to do that. Like, if you have zero idea of what you're doing and you come in here, it's like that. Sometimes magic can happen, but." And especially with magical people, but more often than not, what happens is you come in and you do nothing for like 6 hours because there's no goal in mind. And it's like, man, I don't want to sit here and just take somebody's money so they can like play in this musical sandbox.
A lot of people do though. I think I've turned down a lot of money and left. I mean, I've fought Ketner like a lot. Like we could have made probably tons more money if I would have just said yes in more situations because I'm always just like, I don't want to fuck with something. And it's like serious is almost the wrong word. I don't know. If I was more financially hungry, and I don't even know what to say. I just don't want to fuck with a lot of stuff. We'd be making a lot more money if I was like bringing in.
If somebody came in and was like, hey, I'm going to improvise, but like I have some basic ideas and I'm really serious. Like I want to walk out of there with like at least a completed idea. That's different. Like if you want to come to the studio with a goal in mind of creation, that's fine. But like literally like when it's presented to me, I just want to fuck around. It's like, I don't want to fuck around.
Yeah.
It's like because I only get to live one time and I'm really poor and this has already taken a lot of time to achieve. And it's like, so if you're not going to respect that, like I've put a lot of time and thought into this, like why am I just going to like take your money to watch you like jerk yourself off or whatever
yeah,
it is?
I mean, it's like I feel like this. Most studios, if people come in with a bunch of beer, they're not going to say anything because they're like, well, I got to keep the lights on.
Right.
So we'll take your money, you're going to get drunk, and you're going to record something you'll never use. And I'm not even saying that I don't do that out of some kind of like moral superiority. It's just I don't want to deal with how bad I feel watching someone record something that is worthless because they're so scared they don't want to come in and do it sober, or they just haven't learned that you sound better that way. You know?
Right.
So it's just me not wanting to deal with that experience. I think is what it gets down to.
Yeah. There was something you said earlier. I lost it. It was interesting to me. The thing I would take away from all that is do a little bit of research. And the other thing is like you can always ask people. You can always ask one of us, of course, but it's like there's so many people in this city who know what they're talking about. And it's like and everybody had and it's not that it's because there's not one right answer. It's like so I've had this experience. I tell somebody something like, oh, hey, you might really like this mic. And like, hey, I talked to so-and-so. They said that mic sucks ass. I was like, well, what room were they in? What was the source? Like, maybe the mic was malfunctioning or maybe like that mic just wasn't right for that performer's voice. It's like, you can't just be like, that thing sucks and Ketner's wrong. And you can't vice versa be like, well, Ketner's always right and that other guy's an idiot for disagreeing. It's like, there's so many variables involved in everything, but it's like, it's worth, just ask people. Like I met a guy at a funeral actually of a friend who was an acoustician for Motown Records when they were building like studios for people in LA. I've sent that guy so many text messages. He only answers like once every 6 months. And he usually tells me something really important. But it's like I probably send him a message every week. And every 6 months he finally is like, okay, I'll answer one of your questions, you know? Because his time is valuable too. And it's like, but I annoy the shit out of that guy.
Right.
And the thing is, I don't mind. Some people get bothered by this because it's like, they're like, I just want you to enjoy my performance. But it's like people come up to me and ask me about my pedals or when I'm performing, or they ask me about my amp, or it's like, I've always kind of enjoyed that because I'm like, hey, look, you're not here to be my fan necessarily. And even if you are, me being like, I'm not telling you my secrets is not going to then make you a fan, right? It's more like, okay, well, maybe you are a fan and you're also a musician. Or maybe you just like as a hobby, like to talk technical stuff. And a lot of times I realize people just like to connect with one another.
Yeah.
And they're just looking for a medium. You know, like, how's the weather? Hey, what kind of pedal is that? They don't even care. they just want to talk to you.
Right.
And so it's
yeah. I mean, when I came up, a lot of stuff felt like secrecy, where people have all their secrets and their secret sound and their secret gear. And once YouTube kind of blew up, it's like that's not really the culture anymore, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, if I could say anything about, because I don't want it to come off where like, oh, these studios in Dallas are going to take all your money.
Right.
And like, we know everything. Like, we don't. We're learning too. Like, we're just on the journey.
Right.
But well, I will say, if there's anything I could say to anybody, or if anybody has questions about anything we've learned, whether it's advertising or recording, like, you know, hit us up. Like, I don't care if you record this or not. But I like the idea of having some kind of sense of community where between the giant shared brain that we have that makes up the internet, you know, it's like, let's figure out how to move forward and save some money and make better music.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, I think the thing to take away there is do enough research that, like, if you're looking at a proposal, if it's going to cost me this much to record, this much to mix, this much to master, and the number looks big to you, we'll instantly start asking other people questions.
Yeah.
You know? Instantly start going online and reading. Instantly start, because if you can find a way to take, let's say in your mind, you're like, I'm willing to spend $5,000 on this. And then somebody comes back to you and they're like, it's going to cost 10. And you're like, oh shit. Well, not only does that mean you have no money for advertising, it means you have no money for advertising a long time into the future.
It's like, I'll put it like this. If you start having that feeling where you're like, oh, I got to do Kickstarter and get all these thousands of dollars and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I don't know. You can normally do more with what you have than you realize. And a lot of times I think it's some form of resistance that makes you think, well, I can't do this until I have this. And I can't do this till I go to this studio. And I can't do this till I have this. And I think
I need a Neumann and a Neve.
Yeah. If you just stop and you break it down and you change the mindset to, this is what I have. I'm going to get the best quality and the best performance I can with what I have and go from there, things will turn out better.
Which is Billie Eilish. The mic they did most of her record on is the AT6060. It's a $99 condenser mic.
I thought it was a 2020.
Was it the 2020? I thought it was a 6060.
I don't know. I thought you told me 2020.
Oh, maybe it was. I don't know. It's some series of sequential of repeating even numbers. But
it's definitely a mic.
It's a $99
that
mic.
mic sucks.
Yeah, it's like if I saw the mic and somebody like, it's like a mic I see sometimes.
It's a mic that I've been like, oh, that mic sucks.
Yeah, I see people use them live, like trumpet players. They pull them out. And I'm like, oh fuck, you know. I'm like, it's not a good mic, but
now one of the biggest hits in history.
I think their combined net worth is over $40 million. She just turned 18. Her brother Phineas is 22. They recorded on this mic most of that record. I think now they have a TLM 103 Neumann,
Yeah.
which I've always thought was kind of a shitty mic too. And it's like, well, it's way nicer than that mic.
Right.
And it's like, it's not a U67, but it's like, the TLM 103 seems like such a great mic by comparison to this mic that she has made $40 million with. You know, so it's like...
Well, I guess it's, if you record a song that is technically perfect with no emotion in the best studio versus a song that is emotionally resonant and dripping with feeling on substandard gear, I feel like people are going to want to hear the latter more than the former.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, so what's your point about resistance? The thing that's resisting you is not the gear, is not money, is not, the thing that's resisting you is getting into a space where you can, what you said, where you can drip with your own emotion.
Right.
Into something that's recording you.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, and that's what's missing.
And I want to make a giant point is that a lot of this is literally me talking to myself because I have been and still am guilty constantly of being like, oh, I need this piece of gear before I can do this.
Right.
Like it is a constant process that repeats and repeats and repeats. And I make tiny progress of having these little breakthroughs where I feel like I pull my head above the water. I'm like, no, I can do it now. And then sometimes I'll do it. But I spend giant amounts of time telling myself why I can't do something because I don't have a piece of gear or I don't have something.
Right. And it's like, you know, obviously the gear has to exist in order for you to do it at all. So there has to be some gear and there is quality to consider. But it should never stop you from doing.
Right.
Right. Like that's the thing. It's like, I'm sure... You know, it's really interesting. I watched an interview with Phineas. He said now that he has access to like these really expensive studios and stuff, he realizes how special that bedroom and that shitty mic were.
Right.
You know, he's like, because they can't get the same sound they're used to. He's like, he doesn't know. He's not even used to mixing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He goes to a big studio with a big mic, and he's like, "Well, that sounds so different."
Right.
And it's like, so you never know, like, the thing you thought was your limitation could actually be, like, your leg up. You know, the thing that you thought was, like, crippling you is actually part of the formula that's making you succeed. So it's just, I don't know, you just don't spend too much money on things you can get for less that are just as good, is what I would say.
Yeah, totally. I was so sick of telling myself that I wanted my music to sound professional, is that the only rule for the Grand Commander album was that it was completely recorded and mixed in this bedroom.
Right.
And I think, actually, the original rule was that I was going to do absolutely everything. And I ended up having my friend Thomas and his brother Daniel record a couple vocals and guitar, but they were all done in this room. So other than that, yeah, I was just like, fuck it. Whatever I can make using what I have. And of course, you know, I've taken a couple years writing it, so slowly I get more gear and still have to deal with all that same shit. But I feel like I've been a lot happier and released music that I feel like is more me than ever before once I let go of that feeling of being like, it has to be professional. And I'll just be like, whatever I can do, the best I can do at this time, I'm going to put it out and run with it.
Who's Charlie Crockett? You know, I knew him when he was busking in Deep Ellum and he couldn't even get a gig inside. And it's like, I love his first record the most. And they had one microphone in a barn and they multi-tracked it. And Charlie Mills, the trumpet player, has been in here and done some stuff with us. And he said the funny thing was it was near like a train track. So like a train would go by and they'd have to stop recording and just wait. And so it'd be a long train. So they go outside and like drink or smoke a cigarette and wait. Okay, we're going to go back in and record.
Right.
And it's like, and that's my favorite record he's done. And it's like, I don't think there was ever in his mind that like, oh, I have to wait until I can get, you know, into the studio and spend $80,000. It was just like, is this available? Can I do it? Are you free? Are you willing? And he's like, cool, let's do it.
Right.
And then, you know, now he records. It's not that his new records don't sound great too. They probably, in terms of fidelity, they're much better. But it's like, that's still my favorite just because you can literally hear that energy in the room of like, we're doing this no matter what. You know, like no matter what happens, we're fucking doing this today because, you know, in his mind, he probably said, this is the day I'm fucking recording that record and I'm not leaving here till that fucking record is done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like,
I mean, that explanation is kind of part of why we're doing the podcast.
right.
You know, because it's like, we really don't know shit about podcasting.
Right.
I don't know where the fuck I'm going to upload this.
Right.
I mean, probably YouTube, Facebook, but like how to actually make it a podcast, like I don't know shit. But, and I was nervous. I mean, I've been slightly nervous this whole time because it's our first episode.
Right.
There's been times where I get lost in talking, but it's like, man, that feeling where you just talk and go, it's the same stream or thread that runs through like that feeling where you just jam or just do this. It's like, just hit record and see what happens.
Right. The one thing I know you were trying to get me to talk about it earlier, but I liked what we were talking about better. I hate self-promotion, and it's like, it's funny because part of the goal of this podcast is to self-promote. It's like one of those like those ads I hate where it's like it's a sponsored ad that says sponsored ads don't work.
Do you
know?
Do you feel weird talking about your song?
No, I don't feel weird. I don't feel weird talking about it. What I feel weird about is the idea that I have to talk about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if somebody just asked me on the street, I'd talk about it for 2 hours and feel nothing about it and be like, that was a fun talk. But it's like, once I was like, but now you have to talk about it. It's like,
right.
Oh shit. It's like, so I wrote this song called Hotep Rock. It's kind of like, I would say stylistically, it's somewhere between like 90s grunge music and like Beck and like a little bit of psychedelia. Kind of sounds a little bit like the Gorillaz and like Cage the Elephant. It's like one of those rock songs where I'm mostly like talk singing, you know, which is something I had never done in my life. It happened, my girlfriend said that she didn't think I could write a full song. And I argue a lot on Facebook with people about politics. I just got into an argument with a guy I thought was my friend. He's not anymore. This was 2016 when Trump got elected or was about to get elected. And he was telling me about how my Jewish friends are subhuman, like the guys I was making a record for and that all this. And I was like, damn, like you've been thinking this the whole time I knew you? Like you're a terrible person. So I no longer speak to this guy. He was a Caucasian guy. But then a few weeks later, I was on Facebook, an African-American friend. he actually started posting that like Jewish people are like not actually human. They have different DNA, and their DNA is used to control.
I didn't realize this was all about the Jewish project we worked on.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. See, I didn't even know this.
They were posting pictures of me dancing. The African American guy was posting pictures of me dancing like to a traditional Jewish song, and I had
was
on
that the
a
one you
yarmulke.
posted where it was a celebration after we did the single?
Yeah. And they were saying all this and it was a black guy saying all this anti-Semitic shit. And I realized, I was like, there's this thing in people, especially in men. It's like tribalistic and like bullying. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like masculinity, right? Like the worst parts of masculinity. And I realized it's just as present in every group of men, whether they're white rednecks or black rednecks or Chinese rednecks, or there's ignorance in all groups of people. And so my friend told me, he's like, oh, I was talking to my friend Jared about it. He's like, that guy's a Hotep. And I was like, a Hotep? What's a Hotep? And so I looked it up. Hotep's like this Egyptian god. Put on the Urban Dictionary, it's an enlightened African-American male who thinks that, they're the supreme being. It's kind of like black supremacy. Like, it's like what white supremacy is, but for African-Americans. And so anyway, flash forward, I had just had this argument online, and I'm really upset. I'm like, man, like, I know all these like racist motherfuckers of different races. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Who are like talking shit about my Jewish friends. And it's like, I sit down and she's like, you can't complete a song. Like, you can start songs, but you can't complete it. And I just start writing, and I hit record on my phone, and I write the entire song in one take. I write the first verse, I write the intro, I write the verse, I sing the chorus, I wrote the second verse. Like, I'm improvising this in one take. I play those crazy changes on the bridge. I sing them. I sing those words. Then I sing the last verse, and then I end the song. And
I didn't realize it was stream of consciousness.
It was one take. Yeah, that's why you showed me Bear Factory for the first time. I was like, I did the same thing, and that's when I showed you Hotep, and you were like, you write songs too, and I was like, yeah, because neither of us knew we wrote songs. He had just started singing at that point too. So
well, see, what happened is that I was telling him how hard it was to record vocals and all the emotional shit I was going through, and he was like, yeah, send me your songs or something. So I emailed you the songs, you never got them. So like months later, it was after we recorded with Chris.
Oh yeah, and you thought like I was like ghosting you. I just didn't get the email.
Yeah, so you're like, oh, how's singing going? Ha ha ha. And I was like, I sent you the songs, you never said shit, so I thought you hated them.
I thought like he must be so insecure about his music, he was afraid to share it with me. So I was just like, I'll just make a joke out of it. And so we both thought we were idiots. Well, anyways, so I write this song, and it's like I didn't really. Because it didn't come from conscious thought, it came totally from my unconscious. The images in my mind were like of like an alt-right dude like shooting a gun and like being pissed off. And then the next image of my mind was like and it was funny, I wrote this song before it happened, like the standoff that happened in Washington, D.C. between that kid with the Make America Great hat on and the Native American guy. But if you watch the whole video, there's these black Israelites on the side instigating the whole thing, right? That scene is literally what I saw in my mind. It's like this racial tribal warfare thing happening, and it's like, and what's at the center of it is men, right? There's not women out there like, white power, and it's like, no, like it's masculinity, and it's the death of masculinity, or maybe it's the death of the worst parts of masculinity, and so it should be celebrated. But that's what's at the centerpiece of this song. And so it's, the first part of the song is really, it's Dostoevsky's Notes from Underground, which, like, if you've seen the movie The Joker, there's an homage to that. They have Robert De Niro playing this talk show host, and Robert De Niro played the taxi driver. Is that Scorsese? Taxi Driver?
I think so.
Well, whatever. In Taxi Driver is based off Notes from Underground, and the whole idea is it's this guy who basically sucks, right? And he's the hero of Dostoevsky's story, and he sucks so bad. He spends all day thinking about how much he sucks, but then also how other people suck, and it's like the book starts off like, I am so sad. I am the saddest person who's ever lived. All my thoughts are sad. Look at my fingers. Even my fingers are sad. And there's a Woody Allen spoof of that where he's like, I am so fat. I'm the fattest person who's ever lived. Even my fingers are fat. Like that's really funny. But
what movie is that?
That's not a movie. That's just like it's the book Notes from Underground.
No, the Woody Allen.
Oh, it's a essay he wrote, like satirizing Dostoevsky. Like, every Woody Allen movie has a reference to Dostoevsky. Like, and half the plots in every Woody Allen movie are usually lifted from Dostoevsky. The Pink Floyd's The Wall. The Wall is a scene in the Notes from Underground in the guy's mind. And he says that, like, you know, because he's mad at people his college who are smarter than him and they're like learning logic better than he is. He's a philosophy major. And he's like, well, they say that reality is 2 + 2 = 4, but 2 + 2 = 4 is like a wall that you can never penetrate. He's like, but sometimes a man will bang his head into the wall until he like makes himself psychotic and believes 2 + 2 = 5. And it's like a wall of like all the ideas that have come before that you're not allowed to cross. Like, it's like the edge of the universe. That's where the idea of the wall comes from. And so like Syd Barrett is the underground man in The Wall. You know, like that's.
So I'm only uttering vowels at this point.
Yeah, but you see how it's all connected, right? So it's like. So to me, it's like, so the song starts off, it's a guy in a taxi, and in my mind, it was an Uber driver, and it was also that kid, that incel kid, like, and he's like in his BMW, he's like, all you bitches who won't suck my dick, you fucking whores gotta fucking die, and then he goes and like runs over some women and kills himself.
Incel, right? What's incel?
Incel means involuntarily celibate.
Well, is this from a movie or this is your imagination?
This is real. This happened in real life.
Okay.
Right. An incel is it's a group of people online. They found themselves on the dark web.
Oh.
They're the people, like a lot of people don't know, like the alt-right started at a pickup artist conventions. Like that's where the alt-right started. Most of the leaders in the alt-right movement were pickup artists. They taught men how to pick up women, and then they converted it into like neo-Nazi, like men, the white man is the best and the black man's stealing all the pussy and we gotta take it over. So it's like,
yeah. So I didn't realize that the birth of Hotep Rock was kind of your emotional reaction to your friends being anti-Semitic and shitting on the project. That was your intro to recording.
My
and
intro,
producing.
yeah, it was resistance. It was like men around me, like seeing like, oh, you're doing something weird and different. Oh, and it's with Jews. Yeah, it's got to be with like they were like, there was just all these like opportunities for them to project like the scapegoats of history onto what I was doing at the time. And it was just weird because both of these, you know, the African American male and the white guy, I thought were both like pretty good friends of mine. And I was like, you guys are fucking terrible, you know? So the point is, this all spewed itself out abstractly in my mind. And it's like, so the choruses, they're all Hotep and the alt-right kids only got one message. So they're all Hotepping, like it's like a dance move. They're all Hotepping. And I saw like the Native American guy beating a drum. They're all Hotepping, the alt-right kids, the kids with the Make America Great hats on. All of them together only have one message for reality, and it's fuck you. They're the underground man banging his head against the wall, hoping 2 + 2 = 4, and maybe if they bang their heads hard enough, it'll happen. Like, that's what it is to me. It's like, it's this confluence of like weak men, like mentally, like their masculinity being threatened, and so they're forming into like groups and then warring against each other because they don't have anything else. Like, all they have is their rage. And so then the middle section is, you know, it's deep. It's like the deeper hidden meaning of what's actually going on inside their minds is they can't get laid. But it's not only that they can't get laid, they can't find a meaningful, like, relationship with another person. They can't find a wife. They can't build a family. They can't do the most biologically, genetically important thing to do as a species is to reproduce offspring into the future, right? They can't do that, so they're unfulfilled. So that's why the middle section is about an alien from another planet who like abducts basically the taxi driver who's just killed a bunch of people. So this guy kills a bunch of people, then he flees to Mexico, and while he's driving in his car in the desert of Mexico, an alien abducts him. And the alien is like, hey, you got to take us to where this problem is happening because the whole universe is just happening inside of our king's head. And he won't let me marry his daughter until I solve his problem. And so that's the bridge, you know? So
wow.
So it's this alien, and he's like, there's this alien, and he's saying, the princess won't marry me. You know, I have to fulfill this, like, the test is like his masculinity. I have to become more masculine. I have to do this thing to make myself a man. And then the princess will marry me, right? And so then it comes out of that, there's the guitar solo. And the end of the song is about friendships. And it's about how at the end, like, those two friends of mine betrayed me. You know, it's like they betrayed my trust. I thought we had shared values. I thought that we saw the world. I thought that we all wanted the best for each other. And I realized, like, you guys are betraying me, you know? And so two best friends in the end betray each other once again and wonder why they still call themselves men, you know? So it's like... You've
told me all this before, but I feel like I'm really only understanding it for the first time.
That's what I was saying earlier. When I want to do podcasts all the time because it forces you, it's like heightened listening and heightened talking. It's like you have to you have to really hear it. Yeah, but it's like, so it's all in that song, And it's like, I don't know if it's that important. It was important to me, like as a therapeutic, like a cathartic act. And then it was really important for me is like, the song itself is its own resistance. I cannot make music until I've recorded this song and released it because it's my first song that's completed. You know what I mean? And it's like, so then I have to release it into the world. And it's like, well, what's a way to release it into the world? It's like, well, you have to go through this process that Sam has discovered, you know, and it's like every phase of it, it's like the song, to me, it's like the book of Job. It's like you have to go through this process. The universe will test you.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you push back, it's like, it seems like the universe is putting like a 1,000 pound weight on you and like, hold this. You're like, oh, fuck. And like, you see the number 1,000. You're like, it's going to be so fucking heavy. And so you just like crumble under it and it crushes you. But if you just lift up, you realize, oh, it's plastic. It's hollow inside. That's a joke. Like, if you just push back a little bit. Yeah.
So this is like your big scary, it's like everyone has their big scary things, right? And then when you face your big scary thing, something always presses back and you have to fight through that.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, all sorts of shit pressed back on this song. I mean, I'm so thrilled this song is out.
Right.
Like,
it's been done for over a year.
Yeah, I mean,
it was one of the first things we finished here, actually.
Right.
It's just been sitting there. Well, one, I couldn't pay to master it. Then it was like, well, I could have just borrowed the money from somebody. But I was like, I don't want to borrow money. And it's like, I borrow money for shit all the time, but I wouldn't borrow it for something really important to me, you know?
It's interesting how what you consider to be the most important thing in your life that you want the most can be something that you keep pushing off. I think because it's so painful or because it's so vulnerable or it touches that nerve. So it's really easy to just be like, like I'll get to it next week. Like I got to do this first.
Right. And it's easy to then engage in these kind of pathways of like, oh, it's Facebook's fault. Oh, fuck Billie Eilish. Or like, I'm just taking that because that's, you know, she won 10 Grammys.
We've been seeing a bunch of Facebook hate on Billie Eilish.
And it's like, you know what, man? It's like, have it, like what we were saying earlier, it's like, she has a thing. And like, even the people that are talking shit about, like, well, she does have a thing. It's like, then your argument is over. You just said it. She has a thing. Like, whatever her thing is, she has it. You're admitting it. Every single person I've seen is like, well, she does have something. It's like, well, then shut the fuck up. It's like, because you don't. And you do. Everybody does. That's what's so crazy about all this. Everybody has that thing inside.
Isn't that a Funkadelic song?
Thong would be cool, though. Funkadelic
thong. Yeah. They probably have them. Yeah. I've had people tell me I should make Grand Commander thongs.
That would be cool. So Funkadelic song is what?
No, actually, no, it's panties. It was a girl that told me that I should make Funkadelic panties. No, Grand Commander panties because my normal T-shirts are not something that women want to wear. She's like, you need to have whatever V-cut or like tank tops.
So they would want to wear it.
Yeah.
They'd actually wear it. Yeah. And then you're advertising to the dude they're sleeping with.
Right.
And he's like, cool.
Yeah. So
then he finds his podcast and he finds my song. See, that's the long game.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a Funkadelic song. I got a thing, you got a thing, everybody's got a thing. Like, it's true. So when you see someone's thing getting recognition, don't point at them and be like, oh, your thing sucks.
Right.
It's like a lot of times, like, or especially like, you know, when I get hate on videos I put out, those people are always so close to being your biggest fans. It's crazy. Right. Because it's like they have a thing that they have not put out or they haven't exposed.
Right.
You know, or they haven't gone through the process of just dealing with kind of the weird pain that you feel when you try to take that thing, that internal whatever, and kind of show it to the world. And it turns into this weird festering hate, which kind of ties into your song, honestly.
No, yeah, exactly.
But man, so
the incels love women a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and they, you know, if they learned just like the freedom, that resistance of like, you know how they always say like men are afraid women will reject them.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a total tangent, but let's go there. I think something that helped me a lot. I was watching a Handmaid's Tale with my girlfriend, and I had never thought it like makes it so much easier to understand the opposite sex. The main character, she says, you know, men are afraid that women won't like them. I mean, that's what men are afraid of. We're afraid women won't like us. Women are afraid men will kill them. You know what I mean? And it's like, once you just, that seems so stupid and obvious, but it's like, I don't walk down the street in Deep Ellum ever thinking that I might get raped. That thought has never entered my mind.
I don't ever get back in my car when I'm pumping gas.
Right. Yeah.
And
exactly.
lock the door.
Like, because I'm afraid somebody might like sexually assault me.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure it happens, obviously, but you don't live with that fear as a man. It's like, but women genuinely, if you asked any woman in Deep Ellum 7 days a week, have they had that thought? They're probably like, yeah, twice in the last hour. So it's like when you understand like that misproportion of like physical power dynamic that exists between men and women, it makes the whole interaction better to me, because it's like I realize like I might be too aggressive in this conversation. I might have like sent off like an alarm signal. I might be standing in a weird way. I might be maybe like I'm huddled too close. And it's like it doesn't mean like you have to be like a weirdo, like afraid to talk to women. It's just when you understand that like, look, you are physically a presence that's very dangerous. Like you're a dude. Dudes commit all the crimes. Dudes commit all the wars. Dudes blow up all the buildings. Dudes shoot all the people. Dudes rape. Dudes are the ones raping dudes. Like when you talk about like, well, a lot of guys get raped too. It's like, yeah, by dudes.
By dudes.
Yeah, it's like dudes are fucking scary. It's like, so when you realize that, like I think something could help like the incel movement. It's like, look, you have a kind of power just by being a man. And it's not like a good or a bad thing. It's just a thing that exists. Like the sun could give you skin cancer if you look at it too long, but it's like you also need it for vitamin D and you'll die if you don't get it. So it's like you're a thing. Just by being a man, you're already a thing that is. And it's like you can use that to your advantage and like, hey, I can have a sense of confidence. Like there's some level where not that she fears you, but it's like there's some level where every woman's going to have like some, like they're going to listen to you when you say, hey, unless you say it unless you whistle at them or like say nice ass. But if you say, hey, how are you tonight? No matter what guy you are, no matter what you look like, no matter what's going on with you, a woman, unless she doesn't hear you or unless she's deaf, she will respond. And she'll be like, oh, I'm good, thank you. And it's like just knowing that, again, it's like a layer of resistance. Like just knowing that, I think could fix like half the problems in the world with dudes.
Yeah.
Like, hey, man, if you say hi to her, she will probably say hi back. Other guys are like, they will? Like, I don't know, like, I guess that all seems so like stupid and condescending, but it's like, I don't know, there is a movement of guys that are murdering women and plotting to like massively rape women, and on one side they want to kill all the white people, on another side they want to kill all the Jews, and on the other side they want to kill all the black people. And I think two of those sides want to kill all the Jews still. And this is the thing, it's like that seems crazy because a lot of people don't live in the intellectual dark web. It's like because I'm always arguing with people, I run into these motherfuckers every day of the week. Every day of the week, 2 or 3 of these guys I run into. And it's like, and then I realize, oh, these are people I know. And I run into them on the streets of Deep Ellum. I'm like, dude, I know what you think. I could like out you in front of all these people, and like there would be like so much hatred directed at you, and I don't, but it's like, I feel
so
like
all of that
is in one
Hotep,
fucking song. Yeah, that's what it's about.
It's the culmination of just these various guises of extreme thinking and what they lead to.
Even on the left, the guys with the scarves, the anonymous dudes or whatever they are with the scarves, and like they run around, the Antifa, it's like they're just as bad. It's like maybe I agree with some of their underlying values, but it's like, okay, so then you bombed the Starbucks, right? Or you robbed a gas station. And the guy who owned the gas station was an Asian guy. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, man, you really stuck it to the system by like fucking that Asian guy's whole financial situation and family up. How are you better than the alt-right neo-Nazis, when you do stuff like that? And it's like, I don't know, and again, it's not the women out there with the scarves on blowing up stuff or like, like lighting cars on fire in their own neighborhood. It's like your neighbor can't get to work tomorrow, douchebag. It's like, it's guys.
Right. Now I understand what you mean when you were telling me that Hotep was about male fragility.
Right.
I didn't have all the pieces together.
Right. It's like, it's the Joker, I saw the Joker for the first time 2 nights ago, and literally the last scene, he stands on a cop car, and like there's all these guys around, like kind of like they're wearing clown masks, but they're kind of like a cross between like alt-right, Antifa, like what, they're all just mixed together. It's like just dudes that are mad, and he like does this thing, his smile, and he's on top of the cop car. I was like, yeah, that's literally almost what the artwork to Hotep Rock is. And it's like, I saw that in my head like 3 years ago, like exactly. And I was like, it's like there's some kind of like
a cultural resonance.
Yeah, there's like a zeitgeist right now, especially among dudes. And it's like, that's why the Joker is a thing. That's why it's like Heath Ledger implied the underground man in the Heath Ledger Batman, The Dark Knight. But then, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker he's just the underground man. And they even have Robert De Niro in the movie as a reference to Taxi Driver, which is a reference to, Notes from Underground. And
man,
it's like,
I wish I had seen the Joker before. I got to go see it now.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So's Taxi Driver.
I've seen Taxi Driver.
Really should just read Notes from Underground. And it's like you really see, like, that's the first book that, like, idealizes an anti-hero in Western literature. And it's like you think, well, like, that's such a common theme. It's like it wasn't a common theme in the 1800s. The hero was always awesome. and,
Right.
like, perfect, and he might have one. It was the fatal flaw, but he'd always overcome it.
So
know?
you've entered a piece of art into the canon of discussing anti-heroes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and this also comes. The reason I think it's similar. I'm a big fan of Kurt Cobain, and I'm a big fan of like not necessarily punk rock, but the kind of like pre-grunge, like Pixies, like type of thing. The Melvins. It's I don't know really what to call that stuff. It's like pre-grunge or like the beginning phases of grunge, and it has attributes of new wave. It's like the Seattle sound, right?
I always feel like what punk was kind of an attitude, and then when I hear those bands that start just putting these different genres together, is like it still has that same punk energy. It's just that when punk started, people took that sound like this is punk, and then you see
Right.
people making music that sounds exactly like that for the rest of time.
Right.
But even like you can see interviews with Johnny Rotten, he's like, no, he's like, we weren't trying to solidify something. We were trying to say punk is an attitude about saying, fuck everything, we're gonna do what we want.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So I feel like you're just talking about the punk feeling.
Well, okay, but a lot of those songs idealize serial killers.
Mm-hmm.
Like Floyd the Barber is about a little boy getting molested by a barber. It's like pee-pee pressed against my lift. I died pressed between Floyd's hips. Like he suffocated or something that killed him afterwards. And then it's like the song Polly is about an actual rapist, and it's like it's from his perspective instead of the victim's.
Right.
It's like isn't Polly what like Silence of the Lambs was based on? That the guy who kept people in a well or whatever.
I don't know.
I think it is, yeah. So it's like the guy.
Wait, Silence of the Lambs was based on Polly or the other way around?
No. Silence of the Lambs is based on this real killer.
Oh, the same Nirvana song was based on.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's like he like kept women like in a pit or whatever and like wore their skin or some shit. And it's like so the whole tune is Polly wants a cracker, think of shit, right? It's from the perspective of the killer. So it's like those are all in the tradition of like the anti-hero. Like, okay, we're always seeing things, like a lot of like Pulp Fiction. It's like you always see like here's these dudes, and then here's the assassins that come in and kill people. It's like, but what about the assassins?
Like
what
Breaking
about
Bad?
the hitman? Yeah, exactly. What about the drug dealers themselves? Like, what about what's going on in their life to make them like this? Because you just see them as like this final stage in like a Pokemon evolution, and they're like evil. And it's like,
well, that's what I love about Breaking Bad, because Walter White's a fucking asshole, and you
Blind
root
Indy's
for him
the
the
worst.
entire time.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But what if you had just seen him like in the movie? There's this old white man drug dealer with glasses. You think, oh, he's like the smart kind of drug dealer who's totally ruthless. And then somebody comes in and he just like slits their throat. You'd be like, that guy's so evil. He's Dr. Evil. He's the worst. And it's like, but you see the whole buildup. It's like those. There's some movies like that. Like what's another one? Like you go back in time and you see like the Darth Vader movies or whatever. Even though those sucked, but you kind of see how he gets there with his mom dying and all that stuff. It's like you don't really see how Kylo Ren gets so fucked up. My parents were too nice to me, so I was like, "Fuck you, man."
Aside from the original 3, all the Star Wars movies are just a giant mishmash of me being bored most of the time.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I
laughed at the final part when Darth Vader became Darth Vader.
Right.
I thought that was so bad.
Right. He's like, "Rah."
Yeah.
The best
Was
Star
that
Wars
the scene where it was like filmed from above and he was like, no,
I'm Darth Vader.
Terrible.
My face is ugly. Yeah. The coolest one to me was actually the one with all the CGI everybody hated. Have you seen that one?
I don't know.
Yeah. So what it is, it's this giant buildup, these two poor people on a planet, and somehow they get wrapped into like this rebellion thing, and they don't want to be, and they fall in love, and then like they realize, oh, we have to get this piece of information off of our planet to help the rebellion, who they don't even want to be a part of. I'm trying to remember the plot. So then at the end, basically, everybody on the planet dies to get this piece of information into space. It lands on, I'm trying to remember, it lands on the space pod. Somebody takes it out of the thing, and then like right at that moment, Darth Vader's ship like lands on their ship, and he gets out, and he just starts like killing motherfuckers, and like this like brilliant scene. He's just like, because you never really see Darth Vader's full power in the whole series till this scene. He's just like throwing dudes like with the Force, and their bodies like crumbling. Like he's just fucking these dudes up, and these dudes are running with this piece of information. And the last scene is they give it to Princess Leia, and she puts it in R2-D2.
Yeah, I've never seen that one.
That's a fucking great. But the problem with that film is it's all CGI. Princess Leia is CGI. All the old characters from the old Star Wars are CGI. So it's like the idea is fucking great. Whoever thought of this movie, like, he should write all the Star Wars movies. And it's like,
was it not George Lucas?
No, it was like some Disney writer, I'm sure. But it's like, it's just such a great idea, and then it's like, but it's CGI,
right?
You know,
man, I'm reaching my first podcast talk threshold.
Okay, yeah.
We have different. He will slowly rev up.
Yeah, I just started.
Yeah, he could probably go for another hour.
Yeah, I'm good though. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about with your song that we haven't gotten to? Also, I have to pee again. Maybe we should just pause it.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I think it's out on Spotify and iTunes. I need to figure out how to get it on SoundCloud and all the other shits.
It's under the name Ketner.
It's under Ketner. The song is Hotep Rock. It's the Egyptian god Hotep. There was a guy named Hotep Jesus on Joe Rogan. If you ever want to see what a Hotep guy looks like and talks like, it's that guy. He's on Joe Rogan saying that like slaves never came to America because black people were so superior to white people that they could never be enslaved. And Joe Rogan's face is like, holy shit. It's like Alex Jones. It's like if you take Alex Jones and then that guy, that's what Hotep Rock is about, you know?
That's a perfect way to explain it. Yeah. So how do you feel? We're at the end.
I feel like I want more coffee, and I'm going to go home and eat a steak because I'm on the Walls protocol, and it's really good for you to eat a steak once a day. That's grass-fed.
I feel like my eyes are glazed, and I have to pee, but I'm happy we made it to the end.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions, we got to figure all that shit out. Like,
we don't know we're going to post this. We don't know how we're going to cut it up. We don't know shit. All we know is that we were sick of talking and not recording.
Yeah. Send us unsolicited penis photos.
No.
And
no, send us comments.
We'll email you the answer
feel.
to the life's questions. Yeah, no. Send us whatever. Preferably not penis photos.
0. All right. I think that's a good way to end.